like World Series or bust after seeing him this weekend?
No, you know how I feel about spring training. I don't make any assessments based on what takes place over the weekend. But T-Bone's got some real takeaways. He'll give those to you as we go along here
Gorman,
today.
50 bombs.
There was an update, though, and I think it's noteworthy. Now, there's going to be a lot of people that have really strong opinions one way or the other based on the reporting that was done this weekend. Because the first thing that came out, this was on Saturday morning, was John Denton's story, which effectively said, hey, the Cardinals and the Astros are talking again. Now, it went further than that, but that was effectively what was put into his story. The Cardinals and the Astros are talking once again. Negotiations are taking place about Nolan Arenado. And then Katie Wu, about an hour later, gets a comment from John Mozeliak, who effectively says, hey, nothing's imminent. I know there's rumors out there, but I can't respond to every one of those rumors that get swirling. That makes sense. I don't blame John Mozeliak for that. And then Katie reported this in her story over on The Athletic. We'll be joined by Katie Wu coming up at 11:30. Quote, although the Houston Astros re-engaged in brief trade discussions with the Cardinals regarding third baseman Nolan Arenado, multiple sources said that no deal is gaining traction, nor has Arenado's thought process for now about approving a trade to the Astros. One source described discussions between the two teams as a, quote, non-starter, end quote. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The YouTube chat is available for you at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. Alex, what'd you make of the news reports coming out of the weekend on Nolan Arenado? Potentially the negotiations about him re-engaging between the Cardinals and the Astros.
I feel like what you just did to me there, BK, is like when you're playing chess and you move your queen up 3 spaces, but you keep your finger on the piece and you're like, no, I don't want to do that one, and then you move it back. That's what I feel like this Nolan Arenado news was. Look, I've kind of remained steadfast in this Nolan Arenado stuff, saying, like, I just feel like it's going to be more difficult to pull this trade off than what we're believing because of the no-trade clause, because of the money that comes into this one. And now I'll add into the next factor to where you're closer to the start of the regular season. Spring training has begun. Nolan has cited the reasons why he nixed a trade to Houston and why his trade list was so small in the offseason, because he didn't want to uproot his family. I have to imagine the closer you get to start the season and now that you're into spring training, it's going to take a lot for you to just be like, yep, I'm ready to go to a team. And mind you, this is the Astros, the same team that he said no to earlier in the offseason. So I saw the news and I'm like, hey, engaging conversations is a really good thing. Yeah. You know what I think happened? Houston saw Isaac Paredes and was like, oh, God, that's our third baseman? Okay, maybe we need to go find somebody. Call up St. Louis and see what they want. And that's what these conversations are. So to me, I don't think the needle has moved very much. I think Nolan Arenado is comfortable in St. Louis and Jupiter. His spring training has begun. His prep for the Cardinal season has begun. I personally feel like, and I could be completely wrong, the next time we could be talking about a Nolan Arenado trade actually taking place is at the trade deadline, because I don't think it's going to happen before the start of the season.
Yeah, seeing these reports of Arenado, and then Fetty's name was floated out there potentially as well, it makes me think Mo's not done with his offseason yet. Like, it makes me think that John Mozeliak, though they're saying all the right things publicly, like, hey, I can't answer every rumor that gets started, like, that's smart from Mo.
Sure.
It does say to me, though, that potentially, hey, Mo's not just going to kick up his feet and say, hey, spring training's here, this is the team that we've got. No, man, we're still listening. Like, if there's an injury for somebody that they need a third baseman, hey, we'll listen on Arenado if it's a team that needs him, or is on his list, excuse me. Same with Eric Fetty. Hey, injury coming up with your rotation, hey, we'll listen on Eric Fetty. That's the way that I read the situation was, hey, Mo's not just saying that offseason's over, spring is here. No, man, Mo's still listening. Mo's still going to be willing to make some roster changes because he knows he failed his offseason, right? He didn't get the youth movement completely accomplished. There's ways that they can make it work in the rotation and in the starting lineup, but that's the way that I think Mozeliak's looking at this. Now, I'm with Alex. I don't think they can make this trade happen, especially with Houston, because all the reports out of Houston seem to suggest, hey, Crane does not want to go above the luxury tax, and they're like $5 million from the luxury tax, and Arenado carries like a $30 million CBT threshold. So how they can make that work, I just feel like that's going to be too many hoops to jump through to make it happen. And Arenado, by the way, said like, hey, I'm open to staying with St. Louis. Do you really want to move your family as the season has started? Like, if Arenado's comfortable with saying, hey, I'm cool with being in St. Louis, yeah, I did want to go to 5 contenders. hey, the season started, man. Do
It
you really
hasn't,
want to try spring trainings here?
Yeah.
Like, it started.
He's not in St. Louis.
Yeah, but the season, now you're in the process of like, hey, if we got to move to Houston, I'm in Florida right now. My wife's got to do that with a 2-year-old. Like, the season's underway.
I disagree with that entirely. I think that the season has not begun. We're in spring training. If this gets to April and we're talking about potentially still moving Nolan Arenado at that point, I have a different opinion on this. But as of today, man, I think it's been made abundantly clear over the last month. And I don't know that this was the case before then, but over the last month, I think it's been made very clear. The Cardinals are the ones that want this to happen. It's not Nolan Arenado. Nolan Arenado is open to going to one of 5 teams, and that's it. He does not want to go to anybody else. They asked him, would you be willing to open up that list? He said, no. I've got 5 teams on my list, and if they don't want me, cool, I'll be a St. Louis Cardinals for this upcoming season. We now know who all of those 5 teams are. The Houston Astros were and apparently are on that list, even though at one point he said no to them. We'll see what comes out of this. I believe John Denton's report. I believe John Denton's reporting that the Astros have re-engaged the Cardinals in negotiations. And then from there, because seemingly everybody agrees with that starting point, the Astros called the Cardinals. That happened for a reason, guys. They don't just randomly say, hey, yup. They called the Cardinals because they wanted to know if they're interested in still trading Nolan Arenado. Now, it becomes really muddy from there. Do the Arenados want to move? We don't know, because at one point they said yes, and then about 3 days later they said no. Apparently it was because he got spooked by the Kyle Tucker trade. Did the Christian Walker signing change things for him? Did them going out there and getting Isaac Paredes and Christian Walker, did that make him more interested in going to the Astros, especially now that they have not done a full teardown of what their team is? I don't know. I think it's maybe worth exploring that opportunity, though. So if I'm in John Mozeliak's shoes, my read on this is pure, like, let's put on the tinfoil hat. What's happening here? Why is this reporting so fragmented? Why are there some people that say not happening, others that say, yeah, possibly? Because it wasn't just John Denton. It was John Denton with the Astros beat writer for MLB.com and Mark Feinsand of MLB.com. Those are trusted reporters, guys. So my read on this, Mo doesn't want this getting out. Mo thinks it would be embarrassing if they go down this path again and they find out that once again, Arenado's not going to accept the deal. Because that's the last thing you do. This is the same thing that the Blues did, right, Alex? Doug Armstrong was aggressive the way that all of us want Mo to be. He went out there, he said, I found a deal. Torrey Krug, you're going to Philadelphia. And then Torrey Krug said, like hell I am. And that was the last piece of the deal. The same thing has to take place here. Find out what the deal looks like. Find out how do you make the money work. And then when everything is put in place, you go to the player and say, are you good with this? So if I'm in Mo's shoes, yeah, I'm going to tell everybody that will listen, nothing has happened here. Nothing. Nothing to see there. We're moving on. I'm not going to respond to any more of these rumors because as of now, that's all this is. If this is happening behind the scenes, that's why I think it gets shut down. Alex, what is your read on where things are at right now with Arenado?
I think you nailed it. I think this is a guy that is open to the possibility of moving. He's got 5 teams on that list, and I'm with you. I'm not disagreeing with John Denton's reporting, and I love that you said it. Like, this is not just John Denton throwing things out there who doesn't do that, but it's also Mark freaking Feinsand, who's like one of the national guys. Like, that's the equivalent of like Pierre LeBrun and Darren Dreger on the NHL side. This guy's in the know. So I don't disagree that this conversation is taking place. I'm not buying it yet with Nolan Arenado. Like, if this was any other team,
fair.
I could sit there and say, yeah, you know what? If the Yankees started making conversations, then it'd be like, okay, maybe I could see that one happening. But because it's the Astros and because this has already kind of taken place and they're re-engaging in the conversations, I'm just skeptical of it. And on the Eric Fedde side of things, I think that's
we should mention what the Eric Fedde side of things is. On the Eric Fedde side of things, Gould had a piece over the weekend, and this is what he reported on Eric Fedde. Quote, the potential for a trade lingers. The Cardinals have said that they want to maintain their pitching depth to begin the spring, but as the games begin, they remain open to adjusting payroll, acquiring talent for the future, and clearing playing time for the younger players, such as Michael McGreevy. Other teams believe that the Cardinals will be open to discussing a trade, sources have said, and the questions are only when and for how much. Spring's inevitable injuries could create such a market. Again, that comes from Derek Gould of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch explaining where things stand right now with Eric Fedde. My read on that was, Cool. So they're in the exact same spot with Eric Fetty that they were a week ago. What was your read?
My read was cool. So they're basically saying, hey, if somebody has an injury to their roster and they need a pitcher, you could give us a call and blow us away with an offer. This isn't an engaging of, we've got to find a trade partner for Eric Fetty. This seems like a report of, hey, we've got Eric Fetty, and yeah, we want to see what our younger pitchers look like. And if you give us a call, maybe we'll be interested in it. But we're not actively shopping Eric Fetty.
Yeah, that's how I read the Fetty one was, hey, Fetty's the guy we're willing to part with if you blow us away, right? It wasn't Matt's name that was thrown in there. It was, hey, we know there's real value with Eric Fetty. He's making $7.5 million, well below the market for like a number 3 starter. Hey, you got an injury? Matt, we're looking at you. I know Manaea's out for 6 to 10 weeks. Come on, give us a call. Like, we're willing to shop him. I think that's what the read was on the Eric Fetty one. And again, that one makes sense to me of moving him because there should be some value there if you can pull off a trade because of his salary, and you open up a spot for Michael McGreevy rather than what we've talked about now, which is, okay, what do you do? Do you do 6-man rotation? Is McGreevy a long man? Does McGreevy start in AAA? This makes things so much easier for Oli Marmol to decide if you do decide to move Eric Fetty.
This is the one to me that's always made very little sense this offseason. Fetty has real value. He's got the potential of a qualifying offer for another team if they were to take him on before the start of the regular season. If they don't, then they lose that qualifying offer opportunity, which means no draft pick compensation and no ability to just say, hey, you're back with us for a 1-year, $20 million deal. If I'm another team, I want that. So this is the time where I would want to trade for Fetty. Also, his value is kind of Miles Michaelis plus in that he's going to give you a bunch of innings next season. It's like as a number 3 or a 4 in the postseason, that's less valuable. I'm not sure that's the guy that I'm necessarily like targeting at the deadline if I'm one of these teams just trying to put myself over the top. Whereas a guy like Ryan Helsley becomes much more valuable at the deadline because he's the thing, the piece that you could put into place that becomes most valuable in October. Fetty is actually almost minimized in terms of his impact that he can have for a real contender when you get to October. His value is for the 6-month regular season. So I do think maybe something gets done there. If I was to say which one is more likely of the two, I still feel as though Fetty is the one that is more likely to be traded before the start of the regular season, but all of the reporting suggests that it's otherwise. All the reporting suggests maybe it's more likely that Arenado is dealt. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. The YouTube chat is available for you at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. I did put this out on Twitter. I'd be curious for your guys' response to it. A poll over on Twitter at BK Sports Talk. At this point, would you be disappointed if the Cardinals were to trade Nolan Arenado? 48% say yes, they would be disappointed now if Nolan Arenado was dealt prior to the start of the season, and 52% say no. If we made that exact same poll on November 1st, it would be like 85% say Nolan Arenado needs to go before the start of the season.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting how this offseason has kind of changed the dynamics in that regard.
I'm actually a little surprised that it wasn't more in favor of the yeses. I thought the yeses would win right now. Yeah, I thought the yeses would be in the leading category.
I thought it would be kind of 50-50 split because I feel like a large chunk of this fan base is ready to just move on.
Totally. Yeah, ready to go the youth movement route, and that obviously is very difficult if Nolan Arenado is here. All right, in 15 minutes, we'll talk to Katie Wu about all of the latest when it comes to the Cardinals, including their center field position battle that's taking place, what her read is on Alec Burleson's role for this team as we begin the spring, and, of course, her latest on Nolan Arenado. All of that in 15 minutes, but coming up next, Alex was out at Enterprise over the weekend. What did we see from the Blues top line, and why was it so effective compared to what it was prior to this break? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care, who's here to take care of your HVAC system. They've been making people comfortable since 1926, and I talk so highly of them because they have been a part of my family's household for the last 30-plus years. My dad has been using them since he's owned a home with our family. I've been using them for our HVAC system since 2016, and I talk so highly of them because of their incredible customer service that they have in the offices when you're trying to schedule appointments, especially when disaster happens and your HVAC stops working, or it's just the knowledgeable technicians that come out and help and provide the advice that you need for your HVAC system. Like this customer service review up on Google+. Scott S., I'm a happy customer of Classic Air and will continue using them for our HVAC system. They always show up when promised. Their techs are friendly, especially Brandon, who recently helped us out of a major jam right before we were leaving on vacation. They've got 2,500 of those Google reviews, a 4.8 rating because of their incredible customer service. So give them a call today. Have them take care of your HVAC system, whether it's brand new or it's 25 years old. They'll take care of that and your family. Just schedule online. Call them today. Just tell them Alex Ferrario sent you at Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
Thomas with Neighbors create a 2-on-1. He scores! Robert Thomas. Buchnevich walks it in. They pump it just wide of the net. Wrap around off the pad. He scores! Robert Thomas has two. Buchnevich waits, shoots, score! Pavel Buchnevich pumps the fist high. 3-2 St. Louis.
They were invested in practice, and they got rewarded with how well they played tonight. Last goal, like Bucci faking that and shooting, he did it in the first two. That's the Bucci that is being creative and playing just natural on his instincts. And I thought Tomer was dominant 200 foot of the ice tonight.
That is the top line that the Blues have been looking for with Alex and T-Bone on BK. Good couple of games over the weekend for the St. Louis Blues. They come back, go up against two legit contenders in the Western Conference, Winnipeg and Colorado, get 3 of the 4 possible points. Disappointing not to get that second point against Winnipeg, Alex. They should have closed that game out. They failed to do so. It's been a theme for them this year. But I want to focus on the negative. We talked plenty about the negatives on the Blues on this season. That was a pretty good weekend by them, man. They outplayed, for the most part, 2 really good Western Conference contenders, and they did so in large part because their top line outplayed the top lines that they went up against. Neighbors, Thomas, and Booch were on the ice at 5-on-5 for 24 minutes over those 2 games this weekend. They outchanced the opposition 10-5. High danger chances were in favor of them 5-1. They outscored the opposition 2-0 over the weekend. Neighbors, Thomas, and Booch were the thing that put you over the top this weekend, Alex. What did you see from them, and why was it different this weekend compared to what we had seen most of the first half of the season?
For Robert Thomas, it felt like he looked a lot healthier. It felt like he was just skating a lot smoother. His initial push-offs were really strong, if that makes sense. Like off of the face-off, it was just that initial gas he was going through. But I think that line worked because of Pavel Buchnevich. Like, Pavel Buchnevich was a man on a mission that weekend. He had 6 total shots on goal, and I believe he had 10 total shot attempts in the 2 games combined. To put that into perspective, the previous 5 games before the break, he had 6 shots on goal. 6 shots in 5 games versus 6 shots in 2 games, and he comes away with 4 points. But it was, Jim Montgomery said it was his creativity. The goal that he scored against Winnipeg, he said that was the Bucci I remember, to where he had the puck, he hesitated, he deked the defenseman out, and then was able to pinpoint his location. But then it's the setup to Robert Thomas's in the Winnipeg game. He takes the hit, absorbs it, pushes the puck up north, and then creates that 2-on-1 for Robert Thomas. He played like a number 1 winger. And that was the difference with Pavel Buchnevich. I don't know if it was health for him, if he was dealing with something nagging. You could tell he was motivated hearing him talk post-game after the Winnipeg loss. Him saying, like, look, people keep telling me I need to shoot more, so I tried to start shoot more. I tried to get in the offensive zone more. That line only works when Pavel Buchnevich is at the top of his game. And I think the 2-week break for him allowed him to, one, stew in the disappointment that was going into that break. And we all know Bucci's he's an edgy guy. So, like, he's sitting, know you were bad for a while. You go out there with a little bit of a purpose, but it was also the health motivated side of things. I think when you're off for 2 weeks, you could go into it a little bit more re-engaged. They were a dangerous line tonight. They were better than the Mark Scheifele line in the Winnipeg game, and they were better. They were absolutely better than Nathan McKinnon and Martin Necas.
I praise, because those are 2 lines that are up there with the best in the Western Conference. Jake Neighbors, after the game, was asked about what worked for his line. I thought he had a really good response as well.
You know, eliminating our turnovers and kind of the track meet game has made us a lot more effective. I think when we're in the O-zone and rolling around and making plays, that's when we're at our best. It's, you know, we're good off the rush too, but I think, you know, when we get to the goal line and get pucks back, that's when we're most effective.
I know that's the typical response that you'd get from Jake Neighbors. That's the way that he plays, but I also think it's true, man. The top line for the Blues becomes too rush-oriented at times. I like watching it occasionally because it's fun, fast break hockey, right? It's a basketball game where instead of watching Virginia play, you're watching Alabama play. Yeah, it's more enjoyable. But when you think about what wins, what is the best thing for your team, given what their skill sets are, man, they're just not what that top line is for Colorado, right? Like, they're not what Edmonton has with Draisaitl and McDavid, where they're just flying down the ice and they've got these elite shots all over the place. That's not who the Blues are. So you've got to recognize, okay, who are we? How do we win? And for them, it's cycle game, get the pucks down low, get it in front of the net, get multiple opportunities on that, and then score the goal. Like that's how they have to be able to have success. And far too often they fall into some of their old habits. It was nice to see them over the weekend just play the way that we know they can win with.
Yeah, there was an emphasis specifically in that Colorado game. It felt like something just changed for them in terms of an emphasis of just going to the front of the net. Going to the front of the net, and that's where Pavel Buchnevich came away with a couple of scoring chances. Robert Thomas came away with a couple of scoring chances. It did feel like there was more of a aggressiveness in their forecheck and creating turnovers. And look, you've got the skill with Robert Thomas. If Pavel Buchnevich can start finishing, Jake Neighbors is the one that's snake bitten right now. The dude had 3 breakaways in that game against Colorado and couldn't score on any of them. So I don't know if they're going to turn the tide, but for this team to have any success down the stretch and moving forward, man, you need Pavel Buchnevich to be the guy that he was in those 2 games, and he looked the part.
All right, so the top line was the biggest takeaway from those games over the weekend, and you end up getting 3 out of the possible 4 points. Backdrop to that, Vancouver has lost 2 in a row now. The wild card standings are at least looking a little bit more forgiving for the St. Louis Blues. You look at them now, and Vancouver's in that final spot. They've played 57 games. You've played 58, but you're only 5 points back. I can't believe we're having this conversation, but we got to have it, Alex, after what they did over the weekend. And you've got Seattle on Tuesday night. So tomorrow, you got them at home as well. You've had this nice stretch of home games here. Is there anything this team can do that would change, in your mind, their course of action at the deadline, Alex? I think it's 5 games left prior to.
I was going to say 5 games left. Yeah, get points in 5 straight, if not a 4 or 5 game win streak. That's what it's going to take. Like, to change the core. I mean, even listen to Doug Armstrong's words when he was on with TMA last week. He said, we need 4 points this weekend. Well, mission unaccomplished. He got 3 out of 4. Still very good. They said they needed 4. Now, it does work in your favor because Vancouver lost twice, so it gives you the opportunity to pounce a little bit. But, you know, Vancouver's upcoming schedule going into the trade deadline, they play L.A., then Anaheim twice, and Seattle. Unfortunately, I would give the edge to Vancouver there unless they go into a complete down spiral. Calgary, who you're chasing with, plays Washington, Tampa, Florida, Carolina. That's a gauntlet that should allow you to get back into this. And then Utah's got Chicago, Minnesota, New Jersey, and Detroit. So, I mean, it's kind of like a back and forth scale right now for this Blues team. You got to go out there and beat L.A. probably 2 of the 3 times on top of taking care of business against the Seattle Kraken and the Anaheim Ducks.
So when you say if you get the points in 5 straight, win 4 in a row, what does that mean? Because we say that changes your course of action.
It means you're not
buying?
selling. No.
Are you are you going out there and looking to give up an asset in order to accumulate a player right now that can help you? What does this actually mean in terms of how the Blues approach the deadline if they go on some kind of a mini run here?
I mean, for me, I would look at this as the way that they did it in 2019, right? They went on an 11-game win streak, and what did they do at the trade deadline? Nothing. They didn't sell, but they didn't add. They added Michael Del Zotto. Sorry, Big Z.
I was going to say, that was a big addition.
Yeah, big addition. Didn't play that much. But, like, yeah, you added him, but you didn't disrupt anything. That's what I would say the same thing here. You're not going to sell. And you're not going to buy. You're going to stand pat, and if something falls into your lap, great. But you're not going to go out there and start giving up assets for what, a third-line center? Cool. Plan on giving up that first-round draft pick if you want it then.
Yeah, and I'm not doing that.
No.
That's where I'm at. If they end up getting some points in these next few games, cool. Don't trade anything. That's fine. I don't think it's that big of a deal, honestly, if they stand pat anyways. If you want Ryan Suter back next year, probably the best way to do so is to not trade him at the deadline, and you're going to get, what, a 4th-round pick?
Yeah.
Conditional 4th in return for Suter. He had no market this past offseason. The Blues were able to acquire him on effectively a minimum deal with some incentives. Cool, keep him. That's fine.
Yeah.
The opportunity cost is not that big there. You weren't going to get much anyways. Radek Faksa, you didn't really give up much to get him in the first place either. He's a nice player. Maybe you bring him back as well. I'd be fine with them holding on to him. I don't think you really lose out on a ton. This is not missing out on the return for Barbashev or for Tarasenko or for O'Reilly. Like, when you had those guys at the deadline, you had to move them. You don't have expiring deals this year that you just need to move, because if you don't, you're giving up the opportunity for a future first-round pick or something in return. I'd be fine with them standing pat this year at the deadline. It really comes down to, do you want to change over the core, and do you view this as your best opportunity to do so? And if they're winning a bunch of these games, that's maybe the biggest thing that can change. But are 5 games really going to change that for you?
No,
I don't
not
think
to
so.
change the core.
Years?
No, not to change the core.
That's kind of how I feel. I don't feel like the next 5 games really do much for me. It's really just it depends on what is out there, what's available for me.
Yeah, and I mean, like, me personally, I'm looking at Ryan Suter and Ryan Fox and being like, hey, I might want you guys to come back and be a part of my team next year. Like, where I would say you probably look at is, does somebody want to engage you on one of your defensemen? And if that's the case, then at least you're going to listen, because
you're talking Letty or Falk.
Talking Letty or Falk, because you've got internal options that could play those positions. But other than that, yeah, you're not changing the core if you go on a little bit of a point streak here.
Yeah, I would still say that they're probably in sell mode, but like, it's kind of like what you guys are saying. Now, I'm more in the vote of, I would trade Fox. I would trade Ryan Suter if you got even a third or fourth round pick.
Either way. I don't have a strong opinion.
And the
I do,
only reason
Dan.
I
Don't
say
get
it,
rid
like,
of them.
And I get what you guys are saying. Like, it's a third round pick. Odds are, like, you hit on that like once out of every 10 times you select in the third round. It's a dart to throw at the dartboard, though, right? In the draft, or to use as an asset in a trade elsewhere. So that's why, like, I'm always in favor of gaining another asset, though it's a very low asset. Guys, Colton Parayko was a third-round pick. Like, you never know what you could end up with in the third round. So that's why I'm open-minded to trading those guys. But, yeah, otherwise, like, to me, it's more focus on Letty, Falk, and then continue to have conversations on Brayden
I don't
Schenn.
even think you're getting a third-round pick for those guys. I think you're probably talking 4th or later. And in those, no, not worth it.
I'm fine with it. If you go on a mini run and you decide to hold on to them, I'm cool with that too. I think that those are such low stakes decisions that it doesn't really bother me either way. The Blues this offseason, valued their draft picks so little that they decided they were going to send a second-round pick up to Philadelphia to take on, or not to Philadelphia, to Pittsburgh
Yeah.
to take on the deal of Kevin Hayes.
And then we had to walk that back and get another pick.
Yeah. So
Give up
And
another
you got
pick.
Broberg and
I just,
Holloway.
right now, with where the Blues are at, I don't really care, and this is famous last words, I don't really care about third or fourth round picks. If
Probably
you,
a Hall of Famer in the third
if you
round this year.
think Suter or Foxa are pieces that can help you next year, go ahead and get him signed to a one-year deal later on this year. And just get that done so that we don't have to worry about that in the offseason. That's the way that I kind of view it. It just doesn't, it's not something that hits me either way.
Here's a question for you, because and maybe you don't have to necessarily do this. Do you have to move one of your centermen to get Dvorsky up here?
No.
Because I think I want to see Dvorsky play.
Sonny can go to the press box.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you just move them.
I still would just move one of them and then just
I don't think
Dvorsky into the lineup.
there's nothing holding them back from bringing up Dalibor Dvorsky today.
Yeah.
The only thing doing so is that they don't think he's ready today.
Yeah.
That's why he's not up.
And my guess is he's going to stay down there because Springfield's been playing well. I don't think Doug even wants to even sniff bringing these guys up right now. Let them keep playing.
He's Alex's T-Bone on BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Covered Service text line to get involved in the show. Katie Wu joins us next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals have started spring games, and they're supposed to be back in action here in about 30 minutes as they're supposed to take on the New York Mets. Steven Matz will be making his spring training first start of the year for the St. Louis Cardinals. And tomorrow night, Blues will be back in action when they take on the Seattle Kraken. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario, and then puck drop at 7 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, the Cardinals insider for The Athletic. She is the one and only Katie Woo, joining us live from Jupiter. You can hear her on Cardinals territory. You can follow her on Twitter at Katie J. Woo. Katie, one of these days, we're going to talk on a Monday. It's going to be great. We're going to be able to talk about Cardinals baseball and what's happening on the field and nothing about what's taking place off of it. But unfortunately, today is not one of those days. You had another report over the weekend. The Cardinals and Astros briefly talked about Nolan Arenado. Stance on no trade is unchanged. Katie, what's the latest with Nolan Arenado today? Thanks for joining us as always.
Happy Monday, guys. And, I'd honestly rather write like 5,000 words about the sixth-string catcher at this point than chase down another Nolan Arenado rumor. But here we are. Yeah, we'll touch on it. This is just kind of like our weekly chat. It can be a segment. Over the weekend, news coming out that the Cardinals and Astros rekindled, and I use that word very lightly, conversations about possibly trading for the third baseman. But as we reported at The Athletic, those conversations were very minimal. One source described it as a non-starter, and John Mozeliak said to myself and Derek Gould that he did not think anything was imminent. Here's what we know, guys, but we'll reiterate it one more time. The Astros can call the Cardinals as often as they want. Any team can call the Cardinals as often as they want. The Cardinals can have as many conversations as they want as well. Nothing really matters unless the player has an interest in going there and is willing to waive his full no-trade clause. By all means, teams should continue checking on because you never know. Players can change their mind all of the time. Things happen. But in my opinion, it doesn't matter how often teams talk until the player decides what he wants to do. So, again, we circle back. Nolan Arenado is still a third baseman. By the way, I can see him actually getting ready to play a game that I didn't think was even going to get played today. But he will be at third base for the St. Louis Cardinals today.
As a follow-up on that, Katie, are you saying that it is your understanding that Nolan Arenado is not interested at this point in going to the Houston Astros still?
I think he needs to. If his mind is going to change, the deal would have to be presented to him, and it would have to something that he's looked at all along. Does it make sense for him? Does it make sense for his family? And I highly doubt, and this is just my speculation, I want to make that clear, that Nolan is going to take a deal just to take a deal. I think, I don't think he necessarily wants to be viewed as just like, hey, the Cardinals want to get rid of me so badly that they'll take anything, nor do I think the Cardinals will do that. So my understanding is he hasn't considered it, hasn't even really changed his mind at all because he hasn't felt the need to. Could he change his mind about any of the previous destinations? Sure. Could he change his mind about the list that he established that he said he wouldn't do? Sure. People change their minds all the time. Seriously, look at me. I change my mind every 2 minutes.
Truth.
So, right, these things can happen. But as of right now, no news is good news, and that's where we're at. We have no substantial changes in any of the negotiations with any of the teams, Astros and Cardinals included.
Katie, sorry to beat a dead horse here, but one more on Arenado, because for me, I kind of feel like once you get into spring training, that guys start to just get their mindset of look, I'm locked into the season now. I don't want to discuss this anymore. Do you think the conversation is going to continue around Nolan Arenado, or at what point do you feel like it's look, this one's done until you get to the trade deadline?
I hope not, but I can certainly see this being a narrative and a storyline just based on how the last 4 months have gone. Now, I will say, and I've said it before with you guys, how Nolan has handled the situation is about as pro as it gets. I mean, at some point, and I think he's there already, he just wants to focus on playing baseball. And this kind of stuff, if, we're exhausted by it and it's our job, I can't imagine how the player feels to constantly be surrounded in rumors like this. He said it, I'm here in St. Louis. As long as I'm here, I'm ready to play. And let's keep in mind that this is a guy who will be 34 years old and has had 2 seasons of decline and is very eager to prove people wrong and show that he still is the likely Hall of Fame baseball player that he spent the first 10 years of his career being. So would I imagine that this dies down before the trade deadline? Probably not. There's always going to be speculation just because this is such a fluid situation. But again, the only things that really change this, other than the continuous check-ins, which teams should do, that's their bare responsibility, will be if one of the teams that Nolan had on his list has a change in operations or a change in roster, or if he changes his mind himself. And, you can't say definitively if those things will take place or not.
Katie Wu was our guest here on 101 ESPN, as she is each and every Monday throughout the Cardinals baseball season. Katie, on the actual baseball product side of things, we did see lineups over the weekend. We saw the Cardinals play a couple of games, and I think, for me at least, the number one storyline throughout spring is center field. What ends up happening out there in center, and then the trickle-down effect of what that means for the rest of your lineup. What, in your opinion, did we learn about how the Cardinals view their center field situation over the weekend?
Yeah, BK, I'm right there with you. To me, that's the most intriguing storyline in center in camp, because in center field, you can make an argument for and against all 3 candidates, some stronger than others, and Lars Nootbaar, Michael Ciani, and Victor Scott II. And they're balancing a lot, right? You're balancing putting out your best everyday roster, regardless of long-term production. You're balancing the long-term view and finding, the ceilings of guys. Can you count on them going forward as you begin this transition period? And you're weighing, offense over defense and how to get that opportunity, the runway, all the buzzwords that we've come accustomed to over the last 4 months, and guaranteeing that. And each player satisfies a different criteria. So my personal opinion is that the Cardinals would not like to see Lars Nootbaar in center field for 2 reasons. One, the lengthy injury history. I'm not quite sure it is the best strategy to put someone who has had trouble staying healthy in a spot such as center field. There's also the, I think, pretty clear argument that Michael Ciani and Victor Scott II are the better defensive center fielders than Lars Nootbaar. And Lars Nootbaar has been an above-average player in the corners. If he stays healthy, I think he's a difference maker for any club. But putting him in center might be the choice that the Cardinals feel like they have to make because of that trickle-down effect you just mentioned, BK. If you want to play Nolan Gorman every day, which they do, Brendan Donovan every day, which they will, he deserves it, and Lars Nootbaar every day, you almost have to put him in center field. And we brought this up 2 months ago when we first started looking at the lineup if Nolan Arenado did stay. So there's no clear-cut favorite here. I think Michael Ciani, if the Cardinals were playing in a traditional Cardinal season, right, where you're looking at how to put the best lineup out there to win every day, I think the Cardinals would give the nod to Michael Ciani. But that's not the only factor they're weighing in anymore. Like we talked about, the runway, playing time, certain other positions, the trickle-down effect are all going to factor in here, and it's unclear to me how the Cardinals are going to solve that problem.
So does the guy that suffers, Katie, is it Alec Burleson in terms of the at-bats and the playing time with this?
That's connected, too. And I wrote about that in The Athletic this morning. Yeah, Alec Burleson is the guy that I think is impacted by the trickle-down the most, right? Because they're having him take as many reps behind first base as possible because they want to find a position where he can be besides DH, because the DH is most likely going to be taken by Gorman on days where Donovan is at second, or by Herrera when there's a lefty starter on the mound. So where does that leave Burleson, who was your best overall hitter in the first half, had some of the highest contact rates in baseball, and is a very consistent left-handed bat? They don't know, and they're trying to figure that out. And the Cardinals have talked about how the logjam of this roster is going to be something that they have to rethink their strategy on. They have clearly defined players, such as Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman and Lars Nootbaar, as ones who they're going to emphasize or prioritize playing time. Alec Burleson, from my early just observations at camp, has not made that cut yet, and I'm wondering just how big of a disservice that would be. But then you look at the roster construction, and the Cardinals already have so many left-handed hitters and so many redundant positions and so many offensive first bats that really, you can put them somewhere defensively, but you're not super comfortable in it. And I don't mean that as a knock on Burleson. He made defensive strides last year, but he's still not a defensive first player. So I almost feel like, and this is crazy, that we're having the exact same conversations about the roster as we did last year. And then I look and I see that it is almost the exact same roster as last year. So it makes sense.
I'd say that's refreshing, Katie. I don't know about you.
I'd say it's a transition of sorts.
Don't you use new words, damn it.
Katie Wu is our guest here on 101 ESPN for just another couple of minutes. Katie, over the weekend, we did see the Cardinals actually play a couple of games. I wanted to get some of your takeaways for me on the pitching side of things. TK Roby looked awesome. And then Riley O'Brien looked the way that he did, frankly, last spring training with just nasty stuff. The velo was back up. He looked healthy again, which was encouraging. Whether it's those two guys, somebody else, who stood out to you based on what you saw from this past weekend of baseball?
Well, the easy answer is J.J. Weatherholt. And I'm not just saying that because of the homer and the first-round hype. I'm saying that going back to 2 weeks ago, taking lives against Ryan Helsley, against some of the top pitching prospects in the organization. I mean, people would stop on the backfield and purposely go watch him take live BP because that hit tool is so exciting. And J.J. Weatherholt is going to get a chance to play almost every day because Ollie Marmol explained with the first 10 games before the Cardinals' first off day, he's going to alternate Mason Wynn and J.J. Weatherholt to start at shortstop. And it's just an opportunity to see someone who projects to be a fast riser through the system. And for the first time in a long time, Cardinals fans can see the difference in a top 10 draft pick versus a top 25 draft pick. And J.J. Weatherholt is, in my opinion, one of the most exciting players I've seen in Cardinals camp since starting on the beat. He certainly is worth all the hype and more. Now looking at maybe guys that are closer to impacting the Major League roster, I liked what I saw from Riley O'Brien to Roby. That's exciting. And talked to Ollie Marmol about that yesterday. Health is obviously the predominant factor here. But when healthy, Ollie said that kind of result, that kind of pitch movement was what the Cardinals had come accustomed to seeing. So maybe he's someone maybe on the underside of the radar that could pop up later in the season as a strong consideration for a Major League debut. Just going around the diamond, I would like to see a little bit more of Thomas Ajaci. He'll get a lot of opportunity, and I really would like to see Jordan Walker get into one. When you're looking at these guys' spring training stats or just spring training stats, I get it, but how Jordan Walker hits the ball, his plate approach, if the ball is in the air or not, how hard it's being hit. These are all factors that we can see and use to evaluate, and it's, no understatement. This is a huge season for Jordan Walker, so I'd like to see a little bit more bats from him so we can start making some conclusions.
Katie, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today. Next week, we're going to begin our 20 most important Cardinals players list for the 2025 season. So start thinking about who you think is the very most important player for the Cardinals in 2025. We'll certainly be talking with you about that as we begin our list starting next week. Appreciate the time as always. Enjoy yourself down there in the beautiful weather in Jupiter. We'll talk with you again next week.
You got it, guys. Sure looks like they are going to play a game today, so that's exciting. We'll talk next week.
You got it. That's Katie Whoop joining us as she does each and every Monday here on BK and Ferrario. Appreciate her time as always. Alex, we've said this a million different times. T-Bone disagrees with it to a degree, I suppose, but spring training I don't really care about the results. Mm-hmm. I do care sometimes about how it looks, though, and I agree with Katie. One of the things that I would like to see is for Jordan Walker to just look comfortable. That's one thing I'll say about Victor Scott. We didn't talk much about him with Katie there, but Scott looks comfortable at the plate right now. It's unbelievably small sample size, but he looked a little bit better over the weekend. I want to see that. I want to feel that same way about Jordan Walker as we continue.
Yeah, and unfortunately for him, there's going to be every single eye focused in on him. And I know that we're in the camp of don't make much out of spring training, but you know who's not in that camp? A majority of Cardinals fans. And if you struggle in spring training, there's going to be even more pressure on you if there wasn't already for Jordan Walker. So you want him to get to that point. I do think that there's going to be progress that has to take place with that, with the new hitting coach and Jordan Walker just getting established. But yeah, at some point you're going to have to show some comfort out there. Otherwise, you might not be in the lineup very often.
One other thing on Weatherholt, we got this from the text line. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll get to questions and answers here in just a couple of minutes. We know service time and the scare of forcing him up here will be the reason that JJ doesn't break camp with the team, but he's ready right now, both mechanically and physically. Do not rush this kid. That is one thing that is a top priority for this team. Make sure he's ready. Don't do to him what you did last year with Victor Scott, what you did a couple of years ago with Jordan Walker, what you did a few years ago with Dylan Carlson. Do not rush him. He's going to be a good player. He already looks the part, Alex. And I don't know if that's at second base, at third base, what his future is position-wise. But the guy looks like a really good player and a really good hitter already. Give him time. Make sure he's ready to go by the time he gets to the big leagues. There is zero reason to rush him, especially because right now he's playing the same positions that you already have a logjam at.
Yeah, why would somebody in their sane mind want to see J.J. Weatherholt get an opportunity at the major league level after how much complaining has taken place for all of the Cardinals prospects over the last 5 years in terms of usage and the Cardinals breaking them? Man, there's no way, shape, or form. This kid could go out there and hit a home run at every single at bat in spring training this year, and I would still say do not put him at the major league
If
level.
you did that, then I would say
No. Spring training doesn't matter.
T-Bone on
He
BK.
gets bombs every game.
Questions and answers coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. 314-399-9646 is the air comfort service text line. Let's go ahead and bring this on air because T-Bone's big mad.
Yeah, T-Bone's
It's hot in here.
T-Bone is scathing
I'm
right
dealing
now.
with Brandon.
Why are you so upset about J.J. Weatherholt playing
Can
shortstop?
we play him at his position when he gets up here?
His position
like
is
second
shortstop.
base, where he's gonna be.
The fact that you're concerned about not getting reps at second base and him playing shortstop in the minors is wild to me.
It's crazy.
Whenever you
Text
ever
line, I'm just going to remind you, Walker not be moving to right field in time. So go ahead, tell Brandon about it.
No, they're very similar.
That was third base to
they're
the
definitely the
outfield,
same
man.
thing, as Walker was never going to play third base at the big league level, not only because of Nolan Arenado, but because of his own inability to play the position at a major league level. Definitely the same thing as J.J. Weatherholt, who capably plays the shortstop position and is probably going to be the backup to Mason Wynn at that position if there's ever any kind of a long-term absence for Wynn, knock on wood that there's not. Yes, we definitely should move him off of that position as soon as humanly possible to devalue the asset. Because it's possible in the future.
618 agrees.
I don't think this is going to be the case, but it's possible that J.J. Weatherholt actually ends up being more valuable to another organization because of his ability at shortstop than he is to the Cardinals, and he becomes a piece of a trade a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road. Now, the best way that you can add the most value to that asset is by him continuing to play shortstop, which is the most valuable defensive position in the sport. And you're taking him off of that position for no reason. It's crazy.
I'm just trying to think of the last time an organization was like, damn it, we ruined that prospect because we should have played him at second base instead of short and A-ball. Damn it.
If you can play shortstop, you can play second or third.
You could play shortstop. You could play almost anywhere.
That's a
Mason
pretty
Wynn
chill.
was playing shortstop and pitcher before he was a
Tommy
pro.
Edman, shortstop, who moved to second base and then
he
put
couldn't-
Gold
Betts,
Glover
he
there and
couldn't play
moved to
shortstop.
center. Yes. It's so crazy to me.
T-Bone over
This is, yeah, I value T-Bone's baseball takes like at as high of a level as anybody
I'm
at
not
the
feeling
station.
that.
This is crazy. It's a wild opinion. All right.
618 agrees. That's all that I care about. I care about the fans.
Yeah, stick with the 618.
Anyways, so 314-399-9646 is the air comfort service text line from the 314. Alex, did you see Elliot Friedman reporting that there are two teams that want to unite the Shin brothers together?
Yeah, cool. Not happening.
Okay.
You can get Luke Shen. You're not getting Braden Shen.
You don't think he's getting dealt?
No. I think with Braden Shen, there's going to be teams that are going to be calling, and the first loop you got to jump through is giving Doug Armstrong what he wants, and then the second is going to Braden Shen and say, hey, you want to get traded? Yeah, I mean, the guy's the captain of the Blues. He loves St. Louis, his family. He's got a 2-year-old. Like, I don't think this is going to be as easy as, hey, you want to get traded? Because the thing about Shen is he's not just getting traded and then going to go play for him and then gets to decide where he's going to sign his next contract. He's getting traded, and he's going to that team for the next, 3 years after this, or is it 2 years after? I think it's 3 years after this. So, like, he is moving to that team. So, I think there's a percentage, but yeah, I think every team would want to have both Shen brothers. Why? Because he just saw brothers play in the Four Nations tournament. They're like, hey, we can't get the Kachucks, but let's go get the Shens.
314-399-9646 is the air comfort service text line from the 314. Guys, play the young guys for the Cardinals. Play the young guys for the Blues. Sell everything else.
Hell yeah.
What do you think the plan is with Dvorsky in the immediate future, Alex? I think that's really what that is getting to.
This is purely speculation by me. I think they want to get him a taste of the NHL, but not until towards the end of the season. Right now, the Thunderbirds have won 7 of their last 10 games. Like, they're pushing into a top 3 spot in their division, and they've got a really good nucleus of guys playing together. You've got Stenberg, you've got Kessel, you've got Dvorsky, you've got a couple. Alexandrov's been playing really well for them. I think the front office is like, let's let these guys go experience what chasing down a playoff spot feels like. And then whenever they fall out of it, or we feel like Dvorsky's ready, maybe the last couple of games of the season, you get him up here. But no, I don't expect to see him anytime soon for how Thunderbirds have been playing.
All right, from the 314, final question here. Guys, what did you think about City over the weekend? A scoreless draw for them. They did score a goal. It was called back via the offside. T-Bone, will start with you. What did you think of City over the weekend?
I thought they looked great. I know they ended up with a tie, but I think they had like 2 expected goals, and they held Colorado to like 0.25. I mean, defensively, they were very tight, which was one thing that I was watching for in that game to see what their defense looked like. And then offensively, they kept creating chances. And I think at some point, like, They had one that was like from the 6-yard box, and the goalie just made an incredible save. Like at some point, those are going to start to go in. I'm not going to worry about the whole, hey, at some point they got to score goals till we get like 6 to 10 games in. If then it's still a problem, then we can have a conversation. But I thought they looked great.
It is worth noting, this was a problem for them last year. They didn't score enough. And it really started like, the final month of that first season? Final like 6 weeks or so. They just went cold.
Because they went into the
offensively.
playoffs. There was a weird stretch of like, hey, they went into the playoffs. And it's like, okay, something's not right. You don't want to be limping in, and that's what they did. And then they went home.
Everything went awry last year. We know that. They've overhauled the roster in a way where I almost feel like it's difficult to compare it to what they were a year ago. But I don't love starting off with a scoreless game. It's not ideal. They did get some good chances, to your point. You've got to finish. The Blues have had guys that have really good chances, and they just don't finish. It's one game. Don't want to make too much of it. Got to draw. Everything that I've seen, the people that understand soccer at a higher level than I do seem to believe that they played pretty well overall. Would like to see more of that.
Yeah.
And finish chances.
They were bad defensively last year, and to allow that team to 2 shots.
And this is where,
was impressive.
For me, it's going to be interesting because, like, I remember, I can't remember who it was they opened up with last year, but I remember them playing and going, okay, yeah, this looks good. And then that team they played was awful. So, like, as you get into that 6 to 10 game mark, you really start to see the haves and have-nots. And I'll be interested to know, because that Colorado team's very young, if it was, oh, the defense looked good because Colorado's a young team, not because the defense is actually good. You'll find out more of that within like 6 to 10 games.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you guys are curious, our thoughts on the Mizzou and Illinois losses over the weekend, we'll get into those later on today. In or out coming up in about 15 minutes or so. But coming up next, we got our first return on how the Cardinals are viewing their outfield configuration based on what they did over the weekend. I thought there was one big takeaway for me. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this. We'll get to it next year on 101 ESPN.
Oh, we are getting that taste of nice weather, a little taste of spring weather coming your way, which means it's a perfect opportunity to get down to Ted Drew's, the famous frozen custard, that St. Louis tradition that has been going since 1929, just off of Chippewa. They are officially open, which means you need to schedule the time to get out to Ted Drew's and enjoy that famous frozen custard. It's a year-round tradition to get that concrete and represent St. Louis on top of the concrete. Whatever flavors you're looking for, you can mix and match. My daughter loves the Oreo concrete when she gets to go out there every Friday night. We do it a Ferrario Friday night out, and that's one of our destinations that we always have to hit up. And they've been doing this for so long. Fourth generation's family-run business has been built on quality service and love for St. Louis. And you'll see that when you go out there. Plus, walk across the parking lot off of Chippewa and check out the Ted Drew's gift shop, where you can shop a variety of unique apparel. You could get kids or adults hats, drinkware, T-shirts, gift cards. It's all for you there at Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. So get on out there and start those traditions now. Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, hey, we got our first return over the weekend on how the Cardinals are going to view their outfield configuration. Played 2 games over the weekend, Alex. Got 1 game with Victor Scott in center. He was your leadoff hitter against the Astros. I thought he looked pretty good overall. Went 1 for 2, had a walk in there as well. And forget, like, the results, set those aside. Just the way that he looked at the plate, he seemed like he was more comfortable out there.
Look bigger too, or was that just me?
I think he looks a little bigger as well. I'd be curious to see. There's probably going to be some kind of a story on that throughout the
Best
spring.
shape of his life, I've heard.
And then Michael Ciani started against the Marlins as well. He hit 9th in that lineup. That looked like a potential opening day lineup, by the way.
Of course it did.
Wynn, Donovan, Contreras is your top 3. Arenado batting cleanup. Nootbaar, which I just hate. I really dislike this, batting 5th. Ivan Herrera 6th. No, I like Carrera. I'm higher on him than most. The 5 spot is just not a place that I would want a guy with a 240 average. And you guys know I don't care too much about average. But anyways.
Yeah, you like WAR.
You're a
WAR's more
BABIP
important.
guy.
Ivan Herrera 6, Gorman 7, Walker 8, and Michael Ciani 9. Alex, what did you make of the way that they went about this over the weekend with Ciani and Scott and where they were in the lineup and those guys starting both games in center field? It's Ciani again in center today, right,
Yeah.
T-Bone?
Yeah, and he's hitting 9th.
Yes.
Yeah. What I made of it is everybody playing for Michael Ciani to be your starting center fielder. And the dreams of Lars Nootbaar getting to play center field, they're pretty much dead. I mean, using Michael Ciani and Victor Scott both in the center field position, that tells you exactly what we thought was going to take place. They view the defense as an important factor for this team, and the best chance for them to win on a day-to-day basis is to have Michael Ciani in center field. And I think what that also signifies is I don't know if Victor Scott's going to be on this team to start the season. Because if you've got all of these outfielders, and we talked about it with Katie, of Alec Burleson's playing time being dwindled, I think Michael Ciani's going to be here, and Victor Scott's probably going to be your starting center fielder for the Memphis Redbirds this year.
Yeah, I think Scott has an uphill battle to claim the center field spot. He's going to have to look great to get there because I think Ciani is in the driver's seat. They clearly, though they claim they're balancing offense and defense, I don't think they're feeling that way yet about the catcher position. I think catcher-wise are going to say, hey, you know what? Let's kind of let Herrera be the leader in the clubhouse. We'll kind of figure this out. You're not really going to find out much about his defense in spring. But the center field one is clearly right now, hey, we want Ciani to be the guy. And then we'd rather have Nootbaar in a corner. I think they're viewing this as, hey, if Nootbaar's getting reps in spring training in center field, it's more just hey, just in case of emergency, here you have some reps from center field in spring training that we can then go back into in the regular season if we need it. I think that's the way they're going to approach this. I think they are balancing trying to go with this youth movement while also trying to win baseball games, because otherwise, like, the whole notion of like offense versus defense, I don't think you really care about that if you're in a retool and more focused on the development of the young guys. To me, this is their Ollie Marmol trying to get wins under his belt. And how do you do that? In his opinion, it's by putting Ciani in center.
I don't necessarily blame him. It also could be, I mean, part of the calculus has to be Newt, right? What is the best way to keep him healthy? And if they view it as he can't stay healthy if we put him in center field, I get that. I do, because one of the biggest priorities for them, you can agree or disagree with it, I personally agree with it, is we have to get 140 games out of Lars Nootbaar this year to find out what we have. What is he capable of? If he stays healthy for an entire season, what does that look like for us? Because based on all of the evidence that we have in front of us, it looks pretty freaking good, man. It does. It may not be the type of player that you value because of the low batting average and the high on base percentage and the lack of RBIs that he's going to produce, but he's a good ball player, man. Good defensively, good on the bases, just does everything for the most part pretty well, other than the batting average, which is a problem here. But they need him to stay healthy in order to find that out, to see what exactly do we have here, and what does that mean for his future with the team? Is he a guy that gets an extension? Is he a guy that is trade bait? How do we view this? And if you say the best way for us to find that out is with him not being in center field, we will not find that out if we put him in center field. I get how you end up in this spot. And that puts likely Ciani in center. The tough part then is the trickle-down effect, because they have to see Gorman every day. So that means Gorman is probably going to be your designated hitter, because Donovan, in my opinion at least, will be your most day second baseman. Okay, now I've got my lineup figured out already. Wilson Contreras at first, Gorman at DH, whoever, whether it's Herrera or Pajes, my guess is Herrera at catcher. There's no place there for Alec Burleson on most days. And that's where I think things get a little dicey. I would like to see what Alec Burleson is. It appears, at least based on the early portions of spring training, he doesn't seem to be the priority. It's those other guys that we've already mentioned. And that to me kind of sucks, but it means that this spring training, he better show out, man. Force the issue. Show the coaching staff, the front office, everybody involved, you better put me in this lineup every day because I'm one of your best dudes. I'm better than what you can get out of Nolan Gorman or out of Michael Ciani in center field. Yeah, you might think that Newt's going to get hurt in center. You got to do it because I'm a dude that has to be in this lineup every day. That's what's at stake for Burleson to me. I'm not sure how many other guys on this team have that much at stake for them, where it is, hey, you're either a bench bat coming off the bench almost literally every day, or you could be the starting DH/first baseman for this on us on most days. How many dudes have that kind of what's hanging in the balance for them based on what they do in spring training?
Yeah, I mean, it's all on Alec Burleson. You're right. He's got to force the issue. I mean, me personally, I hate it with Lars Nootbaar. Like, I would put him in center field. And I understand the concern of, look, we want him to stay healthy as long as possible. Injuries are going to happen, whether he's in left field or center field. Is it more likely
That's how I view it.
Is it more likely he's going to get it in that position? Probably. But you know what? If he gets injured, you've got Alec Burleson who's going to be playing a lot for you. And you've got Michael Ciani who's going to go out there. If I were to give you those two players to the front office, to the coaching staff, to a fan, and say, who is more impactful for this team's future, Lars Nootbaar or Michael Ciani? It's Lars Nootbaar. And then if I did the same thing, Alec Burleson or Michael Ciani, it's Alec Burleson. So why am I trying to get Michael Ciani in the lineup and not trying to get these two guys in my lineup?
It's because this is me playing devil's advocate. I agree with you to say that on the front end. But what they would probably say is, I think it is actually a decision on Newt more so than it is a decision on Michael Ciani. I think it is them saying to you, we do not believe that he can hold up by playing in center because of the toll that takes on your body.
But is that bat that important then if you lose him?
What do you mean?
Like, so let's say they're worried about it. We have to keep him healthy. The bat hasn't really shown you much when he's been healthy. That's made.
You're talking about Newt?
Yeah, that's made or break this offense.
Well, if he can't stay, he wants to find that out.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you can't find that out, if you once again do not get answers this year because he's unhealthy, they don't want the potential, at least, of, did we screw up by putting him in center field? Was that on us? Or is it a Newt can't stay healthy thing?
Yeah.
Because if you have that variable of putting him into center field, you might second guess it a month into the season, where because of the mileage that he's putting on his legs, he ends up having a wear and tear type of an injury that maybe would not have happened if he was in left field. Again, I would do it. I think it's worth the risk because it not only gives you information on Nootbaar and the potential that he could be a center fielder moving forward, it also gives you information on Donovan and Gorman and Burleson. There's a trickle-down effect here that I think is really important, but I think that's what they would tell you.
And I totally understand that side of it, but for me, it's like, look, I've gone 3 seasons and he's been injured in left field or right field or wherever he's played. I'm not worried about that anymore. If you want to be a part of this future, you've got to stay healthy. That's on you, but we need you in a position so we can find out what our other guys have to offer, because this isn't just we need to find out what one guy is the future. I think you're trying to figure out what every single guy is for this future.
Yeah, I just think they've clearly placed a priority and emphasis on certain guys. I think Gorman is one of them. I think Walker is another, and I think Nootbaar is the third. I don't think they need to know what Donovan is. I think they just want him in the lineup every day because they know what he is, and he's a really good player, and he's a part of their future. So I think he's in a separate category for me. But Nootbaar, Gorman, and Walker appear to be the 3 players that they're prioritizing. You might be able at this point, based on what we've seen very early in spring, to put Herrera into that mix as well. Those are the young guys that they're placing an emphasis on, and if that means it comes at unfortunately, the trickle-down effect is that means less playing time for Burleson or no playing time for Thomas and JC. I think they're willing to live with that because of the run. Those guys still have runway on their contracts. Burleson's in year 2. You could see a lot more of Alec Burleson, and they're not having to pay him for another 2 years, I think it is. So JC has not even really spent time in the big leagues other than the last month or so of the season last year. They've got time to find out on them. We're running out of time on these dudes, man. They're in arbitration. They're like starting to make some real money. It's time to make some decisions here. I think that's why they're doing it this way.
And I think some of their thought process, though I agree it probably more is tailored to Nootbaar, keeping him healthy. I also think they're still kind of stuck in a old school way with Burleson of, hey, he's not a great defensive player. He is more bat first than anything else. Definitely. And we've seen the Cardinals have devalued those guys across the last couple of years, right? Like Luken Baker's kind of that. Now his role would be a bench bat, but we didn't see him till like August when they were out of it and they desperately needed some help on their bench last season. Same with like a Juan Yepes. Juan Yepes can hit at the big leagues, guys. Now, where you play him defensively, I have no freaking clue. But the Cardinals didn't value that. They didn't look at him and say, hey, that's a guy that could really help us, even in a bench role. They said, we don't know what to do with him. I think Burleson's fallen victim to that here because I think he can hit. And I think his second half struggles last year were, hey, I'm hitting that rookie wall, first time being up here, didn't really pace myself very well. I can figure that out next year. And the Cardinals are going, yeah, well, you're kind of in line because, we didn't have better options. This year they're viewing it differently. Hey, we got Contreras at first. Newpar's better in left. That actually keeps him healthier. So that entail keeps Ciani in center field. Now you're just pinched for a spot, and I think that is where they are at right now.
I think that's where it's at as well, and then they'll find out where we are a month into the season, and if Burleson and his limited opportunities is showing out, other guys have started to fall away. We'll see if they stick to their word, if they're being real runway for these young guys. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. In 15 minutes, we got to talk about Pavel Buchnevich. He might be the most important Blue the rest of the way because of what he means, not only for this season, but beyond. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. In or out next here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. If you guys have a scenario, get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line, or check us out on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Alex, let's start out with this. In or out, T-Bone's Rams will trade Matt Stafford this week while the NFL Combine is taking place.
And there's way too much noise going on around this one. It sounds like he and the Stafford clan just are a little unhappy.
Yeah, we're getting rid of his boy Cup.
Yeah, so I can see. I think that one's going to take place very soon. So
Seems
I'll say
pretty clear it's a contract dispute, right?
Yeah.
He wants $50 million a year. He wants long-term security to know where he's going to be, not just for this upcoming season, but beyond. And the Rams are saying, we're not doing that, dude. You've flirted with retirement for like 3 years now. You're 37 years old. We're not giving you a 3-year, $150 million deal that takes you into your like almost age 40 season when we don't know what your future is going to be, and you get hurt every year. I don't blame the Rams for that. I also don't blame Matt Stafford. He knows what his value is. He could go out to the market, get traded. Somebody else is going to give that to him because there are a lot of quarterback-needy teams. So I'm going to go next because I want to hear T-Bone's perspective on this. I'm in as well. I do think he gets traded. Even if it doesn't happen this week, I think it will happen prior to this year's NFL draft. T-Bone, what do you think? In or out?
I'm going to say out, and that might just be me wanting to say
fanboy.
Yeah, positive that he's going to be back. I think right now they're both playing a giant game of chicken. And I think the Rams, like I agree with what you're saying. I also am going, Rams, you don't have that much leverage because who the hell's your quarterback if he leaves? Yeah. And I know and it's clear that the Rams have thrown this out there in the public view for reasons. One, Darnold, because he played in a system very much similar to McVay's in Minnesota under O'Connell. But also, McVay in the preseason was throwing out all kinds of things like, I love Jimmy Garoppolo. And I'm like, dude, please stop, because I know what you're doing. You're playing this for the offseason for Stafford. I'm still going to say out. And the reason I say that is I think they're going to find some mutual ground, get him paid what he wants. And I think Stafford, I just saw a report not too long ago, and I wish I could have found it again, but it was the teams that were interested. Steelers, Raiders, all your Giants, and there was one more. All the teams that are so desperate for a quarterback. And I think Stafford, if he's smart, will look at those. Maybe not Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh might be one that makes sense. But he'll look at those and go, man, I can get $50 million while also getting just crushed behind their terrible offensive line.
Minnesota wouldn't do this, would they?
I don't think so.
If you're Minnesota, would you do it? A bridge to J.J. McCarthy?
Possible, but if you're talking like Stafford wants to get 2-3 years at $50 million.
Sure. You're basically doing the Jordan Love here. You're going to have Jordan Love play, or you're going to have J.J. McCarthy play one season on his rookie contract, and then you have to find out in that one season if he's the guy or not. I get it. The one thing is, you look at that Vikings team, you could win a Super Bowl next year with Matt Stafford as a quarterback.
That's what I would do.
They're ready. It's a ready-made team right now to go win. We saw that this year, but the limitations on Sam Darnold prevented that from taking place. If you're telling me I could trade a first-round pick, give him $50 million a year, maybe it's an out after year 2, I would have to seriously consider that, man. Seriously consider that if I'm the Vikings. And that's the one team that I can see that becomes instantly not just a contender for the playoffs, but for the Super Bowl if they were to add Matt Stafford. And they've got the cap space to make it work right now.
That's why I would do it. I got to maximize my winning now with Justin Jefferson in this team, so I'm not going to give the reins to J.J. McCarthy and fail. I'm going to go get a guy who can get it done.
You know where else I would be interested in?
Oh, the Browns were the 4th team, by the way.
They can't do it. They don't have the money.
Maybe the Rams would like to show
I don't know how
Watson.
they would do it either, but they're supposedly involved.
They're $24 million over the cap as of today.
And Myles Garrett wants out.
As the Saints have shown, you can fix that.
The Colts would be another team that I would look at.
Yeah. Are they in win now mode? I don't know if they've got the roster to win now.
I don't know. I don't know what they're doing ever. I never know. I thought, hey, with Anthony Richardson, at least you give him some runway. They seem to be kind of out on Anthony Richardson at this point.
Can't blame him.
Maybe you trade him for a day 2 pick, get a little bit of draft pick compensation back there.
Great move by the Rams, too, if you could get Anthony Richardson and a little bit of a project for him.
Dude,
that does not feel like a Sean McVay move.
McVay would hate Richardson.
You know,
he hated
YOLO
golf.
The Steelers actually might be an interesting spot for Anthony Richardson. That would be a spot that I think he could maybe work out in, but that would be mine. I think that the Vikings and the Raiders, to me, would be the 2 most interesting teams.
I think it's ridiculous that the Rams aren't going to figure this out. Because I don't see what their pivot is, right? Like, when they moved on from Goff, I mean, he ended up being part of the trade, but, that whole offseason, I was like, hey, it makes sense to move on from Goff and go get Stafford or an Aaron Rodgers. Those were the 2 guys that offseason. That makes sense. I don't know what the hell the pivot is this year. I'm just giving the money he wants.
Jordan Walker with a 105-mile-per-hour single off of the bat.
On the ground.
Indeed.
Oh, great. He's going to Memphis.
Yes.
105 miles an hour, though.
Oh, and I heard,
hard to
and I
field
heard
that.
Steven Matz had an efficient outing.
In
Oh,
all
here he
seriousness,
comes.
Dude, if he hits it that hard, at this point, I just don't care if it's on the ground. We'll work with that. Give it time. Maybe the launch angle just never comes. Hit it hard. Hit them where they ain't. We'll see where it goes. Alex, what do you got for us
Guys,
today?
in or out, Colton Parayko scores 20 goals this season.
He's at what,
13.
I feel like I've got to be out.
Because you hate him?
No.
Well, you do.
Colton Parayko's had an unbelievable year. 20 feels like a lot.
Yeah, 7 more in 25 games. Wild, man.
That is a lot. It's well beyond his current pace, so I'll say out.
See? Hates him. T-Bone,
He's a
I can
great
believe in you.
I'm still going to say
You
out.
guys suck!
I think he can
20
get to
feels like a
45
lot.
points.
I think he's going to get 20 goals. And he's going to be the first defenseman to score 20 goals since Al McInnes did it in 92-93 season.
It's been that long
Yep.
since
It's been that long since he's done it.
Wow.
Here's why I think it's going to happen. He's got 11 even strength goals. McInnes that year had 8. He's involved in the play. Pronger was talking about this on Saturday in the locker room. Like, he's unafraid to take that shot. He had a 102-mile-an-hour shot on Saturday night. And then he scores the goal standing in front of the net. Jim Montgomery is basically giving him the runway to say, do what you need to do to create offense. I think he's going to hit 20 goals this season, and I'm going to go as so bold as to say I think he'll finish the year in top 5 voting for the Norris Trophy.
Wow.
He's not going to get top 3. It's Makar, it's BK's guy that doesn't believe he's a real hockey player, Zach Werenski, and it's going to be Quinn Hughes. But I think he'll finish top 5.
I like it. Guys.
Werenski rocks. That guy's
Yeah,
really
he
good.
does, man. Parayko's got more even straight goals than Werenski.
Cool. He's a better
He's
player.
like third, isn't he, in the NHL now?
He's second, behind Cale Makar.
Guys.
Yeah. Rethinking your nose, huh?
No. In or
You guys
out?
suck.
If Jordan Walker's ceiling is a 260 hitter, 20 home runs, and a 760 OPS, that would be a success for the St. Louis Cardinals.
If that's what he becomes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in.
I'll say out.
It'd be disappointing relative to what the expectations were. That's a good baseball player. He's not a superstar, but he's a good baseball player that helps you win. And now that I have that information, I can go acquire the star. So it's disappointing, but yes, it should be considered a success. Those guys do not grow on trees. Having somebody that can consistently give you a 760 OPS, it's a good player.
I'll say out. That's not a success in my eyes for how they labeled him. He was supposed to be the superstar. He was supposed to be the piece that you're building around, and that's not it.
Yeah, I think I would say out as well. Though I agree that is a good baseball player, Cardinals can develop those guys. Why couldn't you get Walker to the ceiling that you thought as a superstar would be the biggest question?
And I chuckled because I don't think even with Jordan Walker doing that, they're not going to go out and go get that superstar.
And that's why I say out. By the way, Luken Baker, 3-run bomb.
There you go.
World Series, am I right? 95 wins.
And you're saying doing that consistently, right? Like not just he has a one-off of a 760 OPS, like that's a consistent.
Yeah, that's basically who he becomes. You can write and pen
It's
20
like
homers.
Donovan and Newbar. That's roughly the range that you're talking about there. Good player, not what you were hoping.
Maybe that OPS would be higher since I said 20 homers, and those guys are like 15, so like 780 maybe.
They also have a higher on base percentage than probably what you're expecting out of
That's
Walker
true,
as
too.
well. So you're given to get. Yeah, it's a fun question. It's an interesting one. You're hoping for a higher ceiling than that for sure. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for in or out. Guys, in or out, Jordan Kyrou is the core piece from the Blues that is traded at the deadline. I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out as well.
You'd have to be getting Brady Tkachuk back if you're moving that.
Oh,
And
wait, is he
you're not,
available?
and you're not doing that at the trade deadline.
In or out from the 618, the Jets are the most sensible team to trade up with the Tennessee Titans for the #1 overall selection. Let me look at this. So the Jets are at number 7 overall.
I would say the Patriots are the most sensible one.
To me, the Giants are the one that makes the most sense.
That's another good one.
They're at number 3, so it's not going to take them as much. They clearly need a quarterback. Go get Cam Moore. Just don't worry about anything else. Just go get your guy.
I think it's the Patriots so that they can be sure to get Travis Hunter. And if you're trading back, you're thinking you could probably get one of those 2 quarterbacks where you're trading.
Multiple first-round picks, though, to get Travis Hunter?
If I'm the Patriots, probably. I've got my quarterback. I got to get my weapon.
I'm not doing that.
I don't think a wide receiver is that valuable,
Yeah.
or a corner, depending
If
on
I'm
where you
trading
put him.
multiple first-round picks, if I'm them, I'm just going to go trade for T. Higgins. If I want the receiver, I'm getting the dude that's ready to go. He's going to be a stud for me. I don't have cap issues right now. I'll just trade the number 4 overall pick for T. Higgins and number 17.
But I got my 2 studs at rookie contracts that I can go out and spend money in other areas to make my team better.
But who are you spending on? Like, dude, the free agency class stinks.
Now, but maybe next year it doesn't.
Maybe. Yeah, I wouldn't do that, but it's something you definitely could.
Just think if you're the Patriots, drafting an offensive lineman isn't going to move the needle very much. And if you can't get T. Higgins, you're just... You had a great offseason. You got Mike Vrabel. Your quarterback looks awesome. You got to get something that can move the needle more for New England this year.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide because, like, Giants, that one makes sense. I could see them making that move.
I think it has to be a team going up for a quarterback, to me.
Yeah, so I was, like, looking, like, right above the Jets because I don't know if the Jets would do it. Like, Vegas. Vegas feels so desperate to go out there and get a quarterback. Brady's running the show. If Brady likes one of those guys, whether it be Shador or Cam Ward, I could see where Vegas is the team that gets super desperate and makes that move.
And they
got a good defense too.
They're in the Darnold conversations. They're in the Matt Stafford conversation. So if they don't end up with one of those, I think they're a team that will answer their quarterback questions this offseason in a meaningful way. One of those two, or going out and either trading up or selecting at number 6 overall quarterback. So I think it's one of those teams: Jets, Vegas, Giants. Maybe you could argue Cleveland, unless they just love both of the quarterbacks, and then they sit and pick at number 2 whoever ends up being remaining there. Those are the teams to me that make the most sense from this perspective. All right, he's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, Pavel Buchnevich looked great over the weekend, and he might be the most important Blue the rest of the way. We'll explain why coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals currently in spring action as they're taking on the New York Mets, and they lead 3-0 thanks to a 3-run home run by Luke and Baker. Ryan Helsley currently on the mound for the St. Louis Cardinals after Steven Matz got the start for St. Louis. And the Blues will be back in action tomorrow night here on 101 ESPN as they take on the Seattle Kraken. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 7 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Kind of a weird outing so far from Ryan Helsley. Came out, was throwing 94, 95, kind of sitting around there for his fastball. That's pretty far down compared to his typical velo. And T-Bone, he was up at, 98? Sitting 98 in his past performance. Ended up throwing one more fastball to Francisco Lindor. It was the second pitch in that at-bat. He was the third batter that he had faced. 92.5 miles an hour on the fastball. And then since then, he's thrown, at least based on what Baseball Savant is showing right now, 4 more pitches. They have all been sliders. Threw one more. Okay, threw another fastball. It was a 97-mile-per-hour fastball to Juan Soto.
He's back.
It was put into play and ended up being a 90.
I guarantee they probably told him, like, hey, throw your slider a lot more.
Yeah, 99-mile-an-hour double or single off of Ryan Helsley. So
Alonso just double brought in, too. Man, this Cardinals team, Helsley stinks.
Oh,
not going to get what we wanted to deadline.
It was a 95-mile-an-hour fastball for him. So
spring training,
down,
guys.
Velo's definitely down. Nothing too concerning.
It's
though.
rainy out there, apparently. So, you're not going to have the same velo as a hot day.
It's your update on the Cardinals game. Cardinals up 3-2 against the Mets. Woo! This game is not on television today. So, all of your updates right here on 101 ESPN. Cardinals have a hard hit rate so far of 55%. So,
what about the Mets? Because it looks like they're crushing Helsley.
25%. We're good.
It's getting up there.
They'll get there.
Matt's had a great day. 2 innings, 1 walk, no strikeouts. Everything was on the ground. Nothing was hit particularly hard. So a really good outing by Steven Matz today, and less so for Ryan Helsley thus far. That is your update.
What kind of opposite world are we living in?
From Jupiter. All right. Let's get into this Blues topic, Alex, because Pavel Buchnevich was great over the weekend. Looked like himself. That looked like the Buch that I remembered, that I fell in love with, that I said is the best penalty killer that I've ever seen in a Blues uniform.
And then you try to trade him 4 years later.
No, that's not true. I was one of the ones that was leading the charge to keep him. Now, I probably shouldn't have been based on what we've seen thus far, but unfortunately, I have to admit where I'm wrong, and so far it has not gone as planned for anybody involved. Buch looks great over the weekend, though, and I think it's noteworthy because of the timing. Got a couple of weeks off, comes back, looks re-energized, and that top line overall, him, Thomas, and Neighbors, they all looked really good. Buch was asked about this after their game. I think this was on Saturday night. On if the break ended up helping that line, and in particular, Pavel Buchnevich. Here's what he had to say about that. Alex, I'm curious your thoughts.
Before the break, we have chances, but we couldn't score. Now me and Thomas find it back in the net, and I feel like reset a little bit help us to when he doesn't score 1 to 5 games in a row, you start eating you inside and frustration building, and now it's kind of. We got week off and look at some good hockey on TVs, and it's help us to reset kind of.
Hearing him talk Saturday and just kind of looking at him, because I was able to go down into the locker room, and you could tell it was just a monkey off of the back moment for Pavel Buchnevich. I think what took place was that guy went through a lot from the beginning of the season up until now. He was told you're a centerman when he didn't want to be a centerman, but he played the position because he wanted to help the team win. It wasn't working. He'd get flipped back and forth. And then Jim Montgomery comes in and he says immediately, you're a winger. But it's not like he had a week off to adapt back to it. It was adapt to it on the fly when we're playing 4 games in 7 days. I think that week off gave him an opportunity to, 1, rest your body because nobody's healthy at this time of the year, but 2, it was kind of a mental reset of hey, we're not playing well, I'm not playing well. Let's get back to what has gotten me successful. And Montgomery said it Saturday after the game. He said that goal that he scored, and frankly, that game that he played, that was the Bucci that I remember. And go back to that 21-22 season, the first year that Jim Montgomery was there behind the bench. That was the year that Buchnevich was a +29, had 30 goals and 76 points. Why? Because of his creativity. Because he was able to create things with his strength, with his size, and with his really good stick placement. So you get Robert Thomas, who's healthy off of that break. You get Pavel Buchnevich, who's got a little bit of a rejuvenation. Now you've got 2/3 of that top line. I still think what's missing for that line to take it to the next level is a pure goal scorer. Because when I think of what the best line has been with Pavel Buchnevich, it was with Vladimir Tarasenko.
What if he's just a 65-point producer? 25 goal scorer, 65-point producer.
Are you a great defensive two-way forward? And by great, I mean...
That's what he's been over the last few years.
Then I'd say that's not good enough. You have to be either a 75-plus point producer or you've got to be great defensively if you're Pavel Buchnevich, because you have to be a top-line winger for this team.
Why?
Because if not, that's $16 million in your second line. Because Jordan Kyrou, we've been pretty steadfast on, I don't think he's a top-line winger. You've got to have somebody who is a top-line winger with Robert Thomas.
Would you have been happy with Braden Shen's production from the wing at his salary over the last few years?
At Shen's salary or Buchnevich's
Shen's
salary? Yeah, Pavel Buchnevich at $6.5 million, probably.
That's what it's going to be on the new cap.
That's fine, but I'm not,
like by percentage, what Braden Shen's money was against the Blues cap over the last few years is what Pavel Buchnevich's money is going to be over the next few seasons.
But my bigger issue is now you have to find two top wingers to play with Robert Thomas. And we've already established that Dalibor Dvorsky's at best a second-line center, and you're not going to move him to the wing. So now you're not only hoping that Jimmy Snuggerud is that top-line player, but you now have to plan for Dylan Holloway to be that top-line winger with Robert Thomas.
See, I don't know that I view it that way. I think you need a top-line winger, no matter what. You need that one guy. And the reason why is, like, Alex, who are, right now for you, in your opinion, what's the best line in the NHL that plays consistently? I'm not talking about Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, because that thing is kind of like up in the air depending on when they're playing together, right, and they break them up occasionally. So,
I mean, the best line, in my opinion, in the NHL would be Mark Scheifele, Gabe Vilardi, and Kyle Connor. Because that's the best offense in the National Hockey League. It's the best power play in the National Hockey League. And you've got Connor, who's got 70 points, and I believe Gabe Vilardi's got almost 30 goals.
And Vilardi's a really good player. You guys know how much I love him. I thought the Blues should be trying to acquire him when he was made available. But Vilardi, for most of his career, has been a good player, nothing more. The reason that I bring this up is because a lot of the time, the way that we look at this, it's pairs, right? It's two guys that are on a line together that make it work, and then there's a third guy that's put up there. So whether that third player for the Blues ends up being Pavel Buchnevich or Dylan Holloway or Jordan Kyrou or Jake Neighbors in this scenario, I think they've got some options to be that third player on that top line. What they're missing is the go-to guy. And the reason that I brought up the Braden Shen comparison for Buch is because, A, the production is starting to look like it might be somewhat similar. Buch is still outproducing what Shen has been. He's also not as physical. He doesn't have, like, there's other stuff that comes along with Shen that I think is kind of unfair to do a direct one-to-one comparison, but just for the money and everything, Buch's money is going to be very similar now against the cap compared to what Shen's was. I think you can make it work. You're just still missing the same thing, but you need Buch to be that. He can't be less than the 65 points, 25 goals, and that's what he's been for most of this season. He just hasn't even lived up to his own standards. So I'll be curious to see what the rest of the season looks like. I think he's the most important piece, man, because I think at this point you kind of know what Kyrou is, you kind of know what Thomas is. You feel pretty good about them, but Buch has a lot of people spooked this year with the way that he's performed. This is not the player that we've seen over the last few years, and it looks like a severe decline for him. If he can be more of the guy this weekend and less of the player that we saw previously, that goes a long way in helping this team kind of get out of whatever this hole is that they've dug for themselves.
Yeah, if Pavel Buchnevich is the guy that we saw where he's 30 goals, 75 points, and is a really good defensive player, you've got one spot that you need to fill for this team to be competitive next year, and that's a top-line goal scorer. If he's not, I think you've got two spots that you're looking to fill. I think you're going to be looking for that top-line goal scorer, and you're going to be looking for that two-way forward to play with Robert Thomas, because you have to have a top line that can shut down the other team's top line. And it's not just the offense with Buch from this weekend. That line eliminated Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, Nathan McKinnon, and Martin Necas. Like, that is impressive. So it's interesting how it works, because for how inconsistent this team has been, I look at the structure of what they have and say, man, I see what they're trying to do. Like, next year, if I'm the Blues, Shen, Kyrou, and Holloway is a hell of a second line for me next year. They've been consistent since Jim Montgomery has taken over, which means my third line is going to be a Dalibor Dvorsky and a Jake Neighbors, whomever you're going to put on that third line. And then you're putting a Jimmy Snuggerud in the top line if Thomas and Booch are the guys that you expect them to be, and say, okay, can you be something else for us? But if Booch isn't that, now I'm saying now I need my goal scorer to be Snuggerud, but I need somebody else to be at that top. I just feel like you're chasing your tail. It's less likely to be able to capture that in one off season to compete next year if Buchnevich isn't that top line winger to play with Robert Thomas.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, Wilson Contreras is hitting the ever-living hell out of the baseball right
It's
now.
that bulk, baby.
110 mile an hour off the bat, line out, so it didn't end up going down for a hit, but it was just absolutely screaming off of the bat. That's coming off of a 97 mile an hour double to start off this game as well for him. Wilson Contreras is looking really good so far in spring. He looks the part of a big, burly,
No, that's Burley, man.
big time hitting first baseman. So it's positive indications are out there for
Eat your
Wilson
Wheaties,
Contreras.
kids.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK coming up in about 10 minutes or so. Illinois had a chance over the weekend to turn their season around. They were going up against one of the best teams in the country, and it could not have gone any worse. We'll talk about that, what it means for T-Bone's Illini in about 10 minutes or so. The Juncture is next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Let's dive into the juncture. Alex, are you on TikTok? Are you a TikToker?
No, I'm not a talker.
Okay. T-Bone?
No.
T-Bone absolutely is a talker. I see him doing those solo dances at home.
I know some people are lurkers, right, where you don't post, but you end up going over there and you see what's going on. I feel like I see a lot of the content on Facebook or Instagram because, let's be honest, everything ends up flowing to other places now anyways. There's a new trend apparently that's going on. And T-Bone, I'm mad at your generation for this.
Yeah, this is your fault.
Are we sure it's my generation?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. Looking at the videos, it sure looks like people that are roughly 15 to 18 years old, which is your generation.
These aren't Tide Pods again, are they?
No, it might be worse. I don't know.
Oh, geez.
So there's a new TikTok trend. The hashtag for this is, let me see, hashtag dropping things on my foot.
What?
Yeah. Hashtag dropping things on my feet.
I did that actually about 2 months ago and broke my toe. It wasn't fun.
One of the videos is of a gentleman. His name is Mr. Brearley. It's a video of him dropping a vacuum cleaner on his foot. Not like a small one, like we've got the little
From
dice.
how high up?
He's holding it about here, right above his head, and then he's got his foot out and he just drops it
Barefoot?
on his foot. Yep. He's got socks on, but that's it.
Well, it's not barefoot.
It has no shoes. It has more than 330,000 views on TikTok.
What is wrong with you people? Why are we watching this, man?
There are now hundreds of videos with these. There's another individual who dropped a computer monitor, an air fryer, and a toaster on his foot. Those have earned him more than 3 million views.
This is an OnlyFans.
Pilling.
Mr. Pulling?
Pilling. Pilling.
This is an OnlyFans thing, right? Like this is a fetish? Watching people like hurt themselves?
Yes.
He's jumping around his room in pain after dropping a toaster, an air fryer, and a computer monitor onto his lower extremity. Quote, I love making content and I like laughing at myself. He's a 19-year-old sales advisor.
This
How
sounds
is
like
this
punishment
content?
for like our pick'em challenge.
How is
What
this-
are we doing, guys?
How is this content?
What are we doing? How is this what we have decided that we're doing as a nation? I know we've got some problems. We don't have to get into those. That's
Damn
for the
it,
Politics
BK.
Podcast. This is not something that we need. In fact, this makes me even more concerned about the future of our nation. T-Bone,
Don't you blame
answer
T-Bone.
for your friends. What is going on here, man?
Yeah, this is your
I don't know.
fault, man.
This one I don't get. There are trends that happen on social media that I don't fully get. There's this one. There's the one where I don't remember what they call it, but it's, hey, will you hold my phone for a second? So you give your phone to a stranger and then you yell at the top of your lungs in a public place like, why are you recording me? Like that one just makes me feel uncomfortable. Like there are a couple trends that I don't get. There's some that are funny. This one's not one of them.
Yeah, like there's been some stupid stuff that we've all done. Remember T-bowing? Like that was harmless, but it was stupid as
Remember
well.
planking?
Was that one?
It was the same thing as T-bowing.
No, T-bowing was different. T-bowing was the,
Oh, yeah,
the
that was
weird
this
stance.
one.
Yeah, planking was where
Yeah.
you... See,
You're
you
like,
get damn
I'm
mad
sorry.
about stuff. God!
You know what's funny? We get pretty mad about the Cardinals. He gets pretty mad at us. And it's weird.
I know, seriously.
We just got a text.
From who?
Can I share who this is
Yeah,
from?
please. Yeah, T-Bone, you're going to love this one.
So T-Bone earlier today said that the Cardinals need to start getting J.J. Weatherholt some reps at second base
Yeah.
because they already have somebody that's playing
Yeah,
at short.
yeah, and obviously it takes multiple years to figure out how to play second base when you're a natural shortstop.
Jeremy Rutherford just texted us.
I figured this was from JR.
T-Bone, the Blues are going to have to start getting Snugger in some reps at goalie because they have too many wingers already on the roster.
Yeah,
It's not even close to the same thing, JR.
I actually heard that they're going to call Minnesota and tell them that. Like, hey, can we start getting some reps there? Because we want to make sure he's ready.
Okay.
God, JR gets our show.
I'm disappointed I wasn't attached in that text thread, JR. First off, I know you can't find me on Twitter, JR. I know you can find my phone number in your phone.
JR's upset with your
Well,
generation,
he texted
too.
it to you, too. Oh, no, that's
he
just
did?
me and Alex.
No, he
It was a
did.
private text, apparently. Way to go,
That's
Brandon.
tremendous. From the 618. Guys, did I hear that this guy is a 19-year-old advisor for sales? I advise him to please grow up. Touche.
I just like at what point do you sit there and you're like, you know what, I need to make content. Like I know what he's doing. It's what made Jackass successful,
Sure,
right?
yeah, of course.
Because you beat yourself up, people are going to watch it, and I do agree. You know, every once in a while you want to watch somebody else in pain. But like, really? Like, I'm going to drop an air fryer on my foot. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next week when I decide to drop a toaster on my foot. Like, okay, cool, man. I see it once and then I'm done.
You know, we have show content throughout the week, right? We got Katie on Mondays, we got JR on Tuesdays, we got Curbs on Wednesdays, we've got Joey on Thursdays, we've got Mike McKenna on Fridays. Every week we've got that written out. Their show plan is like Monday, toaster, Tuesday, oven, Wednesday,
All right, guys.
dry clean.
Friday, we're dropping a mini fridge, so prepare.
I'm just picturing like his buddies texting him, hey, we're going to go get drinks at lunch. You know, you want to come out at lunch? Let me check my calendar. Oh, sorry, I got to drop a toaster oven on my foot.
Somebody said just wait until BK discovers the guy that drops bowling balls on his feet. What?
I know. I actually, when I dropped that safe on my foot like 2 months ago and broke my toe, I wish I would have been filming. Apparently, I could have gotten some followers.
Yesterday, I stubbed my toe on the couch. I felt like I was going to go on the IR for the next 3 weeks.
Oh, don't you lay on the ground for like a good 10 minutes and you just like, oh, God.
It's the worst pain. The worst pain. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll play a game of Can You Beat the Blues? We will have 3 different contestants today. They will be going up against Colton Parayko. You're going to be going up against him for the possibility of winning a signed hockey puck by Colton Parayko and a pair of tickets to see the St. Louis Blues.
Somebody texted and said, how many views do you think you guys could get on YouTube if Alex kicked BK square between the legs?
Millions.
I'd like to find out. Punishment!
Millions. Coming up next, though, Illinois. We'll get to Can You Beat the Blues at 1:15, so save your text on that. But at 1:15, we will get our 3 contestants for that to go up against Colton Parayko today. Coming up next, Illinois had a chance over the weekend to turn their season around and start building momentum going into this year's NCAA tournament. They did the exact opposite. This is a disaster. T-Bone's going to freak out next here on 101 ESPN. T-Bone,
Yeah.
we got to talk about your boys. This weekend was a real opportunity for the Illini. A real opportunity, Alex. They went up to Madison Square Garden, had this huge event that they were playing, non-conference game, going up against the Duke Fighting Blue Devils. And they got their asses handed to them thoroughly, to the point where it was the biggest margin of defeat in the history of the Illini program. Did I see that correct, T-Bone?
Yeah.
47 points against the Duke Blue Devils. You gave up 110 points after giving up 95 against Wisconsin. You've given up 75 plus in like seemingly every game over the last month now. You've lost 3 in a row, 4 of your last 6. You're basically right at 500 in conference play. If you look nationally, you're 328th in three-point shooting percentage, and yet you shoot more threes than all but 30 teams in the country. So you're bottom 30 in shooting percentage, and you shoot as much as anybody in the country. And this weekend was no different where, dude, they were abysmal from 3, and they just kept shooting them. The Illini look like a disaster right now. This was a team that T-Bone told us earlier in the season, Alex, that, hey, this team might be better than even the IO teams. Like, this team has a real chance to go as far as any team in the Brad Underwood era has gone thus far. What happened, T-Bone? And what the hell was that over the weekend?
Over the weekend, like, that was just a ass kicking to the nth degree is what that was. I mean, they got embarrassed and they clearly quit in the game. And you know it's bad when I saw, because I turned it off at halftime. And you know it's bad if I'm giving up on the boys at halftime. But not only that, the backups dominated the Illini. And I think part of it, I don't know what exactly has happened with them defensively. That's one that I can't really explain. Now, like a couple of their guys, like Will Riley, to me, he's like one of their worst on-ball defenders. So, like, if he's getting beat, it doesn't surprise me. But everybody else is. Isevich is not a guy that's going to protect the paint. And I think teams have finally realized that of, hey, this guy's a pretty good, like, he's their center. He's more of a stretch 4, shoots the 3 well, great offensive mind. He's not a guy that's going to go up and deny at the rim, and I think teams are taking advantage of that. And then what happens when you start to take advantage of that, then Illinois really got to help more on the help side, so when they drive into the paint, boom, kick out, three-point shots are open. Offensively for this team, maybe I got overexcited. Maybe they shot the ball a little bit better in the first half, and it really sent me into this tailspin of this is going to be one of the better Illini teams because early on offensively they look great. You know, they would drive, they would get to the paint, they'd go up, they'd score inside, and then they would drive, kick it out, and they'd hit some three-point shots. Now, they still weren't a great three-point shooting team, but, like, you don't put up 100 at Oregon by accident. So I think what's happened is they've abandoned this whole notion of, hey, we're going to get to the paint. We're going to go to the free throw line especially. They're not doing that anymore, and they are continuing to settle. And teams have now learned that to where they are packing the paint a little bit. They're backing up a little bit defensively and saying, hey, you got a three-point shot. Why don't you take it? And Illinois keeps biting. And Brad Underwood mentioned that, not after the Duke game. I think it was after the Wisconsin game of like, hey, we just settled for easy shots. And that's what's happened to them. They've got to find a way to score outside of just chucking up three-point shots. And the other thing, too, is they've been limited on the offensive glass. They are one of the better rebounding teams in the country. But now because teams are compacting so much inside on them, now they just force that shot attempt, get the rebound, boom, possession's over, no second chance for the Illini.
It's going to be deeper rebounds.
Yeah.
Like that, it eliminates that what should be an advantage for Illinois now becomes potentially a weakness of the other team now getting out in transition. Boom, they're getting up the court. And because Illinois has really kind of sagged defensively recently, that it's been even worse. They're shooting 29% from 3 in conference play. I mean, they were 2 for 26 in this game against Duke.
I tweeted out because I couldn't believe what I was watching at halftime. They were 0 of 16 at halftime.
That's
How are you
even
still
more
shooting the
damning
three?
than the 2 for 26.
Yeah.
Because 2 for 26 means you were 2 for 10 in the second half. That's about the amount of threes that you'd expect.
And it was a blowout, so you're chasing.
Totally. The first half, that can't happen, dude. I don't understand this team. They should be better than what we've seen recently. They should be, and they're not. And I don't know who to blame for that, or if there even is blame to go around. But like Underwood is not immune to any of the criticism. At a certain point, dude, either your message is not getting through, or your message isn't the right one. Stop shooting. Stop. You have got to find a better plan of attack offensively than what you have been doing. If it was a one-off, if over the weekend they go 2 for 26 for 3, but on the season they're a good three-point shooting team and weird stuff happens sometimes, dude, you could live with that. That was Mizzou over the weekend. Caleb Grill, 2 for 12 from 3, bad night for him. They were missing Josh Gray in the game, so they don't have any interior defensive presence. They're on the road at a team that is fighting for a bubble spot right now in Arkansas. Super talented, hasn't come together all year long, but they ended up beating Mizzou over the weekend. I'll live with it. Now, if that becomes a trend, if Caleb Grill just can't shoot down the stretch and he starts going cold, that's a problem, and they're going to have to get that figured out. But for one game, it's a one-off. That's an outlier performance for them. I'm not worried just yet. This was not an outlier for Illinois. This is who they've been for the entirety of the season, and it hasn't been fixed. That, to me, is concerning.
Yeah, and we got a text from the text line from the 618. Hey, Illinois is struggling bad because they've indeed been going through sickness that's affecting them. That doesn't affect your shooting, right? Like, if there was one thing and they're getting tired quickly and they're coming off the floor, like Isevich had to be held on the lineup because, like, he could barely stand when it was, I don't remember what game that might have been the Wisconsin game when they got killed because he came off of the bench and didn't start. We're at the point now where you got to start to figure it out, and they don't have an offensive identity, right? They don't shoot the 3-point. Well, that is their offensive identity. Their offensive identity is we're going to do what we're bad at, which is shoot 3-pointers.
It's crazy,
and they're not going inside. I'm not going to use they've had the flu bug go through. At this point, they got to be getting on the back end of that and start playing better basketball.
You've lost 7 of your last 11 games. Like, when you're going down the stretch like this into the tournament, if you're not playing well or consistent or have confidence, which they obviously lack confidence if you just continue to put up a shot that doesn't work for you, that's not good feelings going into it. So regardless if you're sick or not, you weren't sick for the last 11 games when you lost 7 of them.
Coming up in about 5 minutes, we'll get into Can You Beat the Blues? 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. If you are texting right now, text in I Can Beat the Blues. You'll go up against Colton Parayko. We need 3 contestants to go up against Parayko. Winner gets a signed puck by Colton Parayko and a couple of tickets to see the Blues to a future game. T-Bone, what was your impression of Cooper Flagg over the weekend?
Oh, that guy's a stud.
Best player in the country. He's going to be the number 1 overall selection, but what'd you think of him?
Oh, I thought he was really impressive. He was coming off the dribble a little bit against the Illini, getting to the basket, hitting some easy shots, but also hit a couple of contested ones. Like, yeah, I can see what the hype is around Cooper Flagg. That dude was awesome.
He's got size. He's got athleticism. He plays above the rim. He can shoot it a little bit.
I gave up on
like 18
boys.
or something like that.
Yeah, he had.
I don't think it was like a crazy game.
18, 7, and 5. Like, yeah, that's pretty good.
He's pretty damn good. His closest comparable players, according to KenPom, Tobias Harris, Aaron Gordon. That's an interesting comp to me. Brandon Ingram and Kevin Knox. That Aaron Gordon one feels kind of similar in terms of the way that they play stylistically. Gordon was a little ahead of his time, and then eventually he got to Denver where he fits with what they're trying to do. Really athletic early in his career, a little bit of a point forward style. Yeah, I could see something similar for
Ingram's interesting too, but I think he's
just
more
smaller.
Gordon. Yeah,
yeah. I think he plays with more power than Ingram did in college. But there's definitely some similarities there. But on the Mizzou side of things, did you guys have a different takeaway than I did? I felt like this was an outlier performance, not super worried about
I didn't get to see the game because I was in the middle of Blues that night. But like, it's a bummer to see the loss because that felt like one of those opportunities for Mizzou to continue to climb up. And I think I saw like they went up a notch in the AP poll ranking, so it's good for them. It's a bummer, but you said it Friday. Like, Arkansas is not an easy team. They're a rival of Mizzou, and you said it in the office too. Like, this was desperation mode for them. So I get the loss, and it's explainable for Mizzou, unlike T-Bone's team.
I do think it takes away a little bit of the ceiling for what you can get. I don't think that you're now, barring a crazy run in the tournament, the SEC tournament, I don't think you're necessarily going to get a 3 seed. That feels difficult to attain. 4 seeds still very much on the table. And if you went out the rest of the way, South Carolina, Vandy, Oklahoma, and then that final game against Kentucky, I think you'll probably lock in a 4 seed for yourself, and then we'll see what the ceiling is based on the SEC tournament. But that game probably took away a little bit of your ceiling. I don't think it really drops your floor a whole lot, though. I think you're a 4 or 5 seed now in the NCAA tournament.
I'd agree with that. I didn't take too much from that one. That was a classic. Hey, Caleb Grill didn't have a great night, and it kind of had a trickle-down effect. I mean, he was, what'd you say, 2 of 12 from three-point range? When Caleb Grill goes cold, you need other guys to step up. They didn't really get that contribution over the weekend, and you're going to have those games every now and then. And Arkansas is a solid team. You know, early on, I was worried about that team. They're fine, and they'll be pesky enough to where they can pull off some surprises if they get into the NCAA tournament.
They're wildly talented. They didn't come together early on in the season, and now they are starting to come together a little bit more. They're frisky. They've got a little bit of size. They're super athletic. They're a classic Cal team.
So they're going home in the first round?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
I would not be surprised by that at all. But they've got some guys that if they get hot, they're a tough team to go up against. They're a matchup problem for a lot of teams across the country. All right, with Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into some NFL quick hitters, including the latest with the Matt Stafford sweepstakes. But next, it's time for Can You Beat the Blues? We've got 3 contestants. They're going up against Colton Parayko. 3 different categories. They'll name as many different things within that category as they can in 15 seconds. We'll see who's going home today with the signed puck by Colton Parayko and a couple of pairs of tickets to see the St. Louis Blues. We'll talk about that. Can You Beat the Blues next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We're playing a game of Can You Beat the Blues? We do this each and every Monday here on the show. So if you didn't get involved today, you could potentially do so next week. Today, the contestant is Colton Parayko. It's a very simple game. We'll give you a category. You name as many different things within that category as you can in 15 seconds. So, Alex, if I ask you, name as many different colors as you can in 15 seconds, you would go
red, blue, green, white, yellow, turquoise, violet, rose-colored green. Did I say green twice? Probably.
I think you did. I think you got 9 there. We'd see what Colton Parayko gets. If he got 7, you'd be a +2. You're the leader in the clubhouse. And then we would go to the next one up. We've got a couple of different contestants today. Whoever has the best margin of victory on Colton Parayko will be the one that wins a signed puck by Parayko and a pair of tickets to see the Blues versus the Kings. That game is coming up on March the 1st. Again, if you missed your opportunity today, don't fret. You'll get another opportunity as we continue along here throughout the rest of the St. Louis Blues season. All right, we are going to start things out today with a contestant by the name of Nicholas. Alex, how are you feeling about our guys going up against Colton Parayko today?
I don't know. Colton Parayko's big, he's bad, and he's got a lethal shot, so you better be on your toes.
Potential 20-goal scorer, Colton Parayko.
Not potential,
against
going to be.
Nicholas. Nicholas, we appreciate you tuning in today, being a part of the show. How you doing, my man?
How you doing, sir? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely thrilled to have you. Do you understand the rules of the game?
No, sir.
You do not understand the rules of the game.
One-on-one, I guess.
Okay, Nicholas, your rules today.
Nicholas, you're confusing me.
You're going to be going up against Colton Parayko. He has already done his category. We already asked him, let's say it was colors. He had 15 seconds to name as many different colors as he could. He did so, and then we'll put up his score against your score. You will have the same category as Parayko. So I will ask you the category first. You'll have 15 seconds to name as many different things as you can. Then we'll go to Parayko's answers. We'll see if you were able to beat Colton Parayko today in the game. Do you understand now, my friend?
Yes, sir.
All right.
What would you have done if he would have said, no, I don't?
I would have said, we are going to answer.
Sorry, Nick, you're out.
Nicholas, your category today. Name as many different things as you can that you would find in a garage. As many things as you can that you would find in a garage. You have 15 seconds to do so. On your mark, get set, go.
Gardening tools, car supplies, batteries, ladder, car wash bucket, balls, coolers, batteries, motorcycle.
All right, Nick, that's it.
I had 7 because he said batteries twice.
Did he say batteries twice?
He said batteries twice.
T-Bone, did you get 2 batteries there?
Yeah.
We got 7.
Now, if he would have said AA and AAA batteries, I would have given it to
you
him.
have to give it to him.
Yeah, but he just said batteries.
All right, Nicholas, you got a 7. That's pretty darn good for a guy that didn't understand the rules of the game at the very beginning of this. Well
You took
played,
that slap
sir.
shot to the gut.
Let's see how Colton Parayko did with things that he would find in a garage.
Cars, tools, maybe a broom, shovel. You could find maybe a power washer, a vacuum, maybe gardening equipment.
There we go.
Right there at
the
the end, at
buzzer.
the buzzer. We got a 7 for Parayko as well.
Yep, 7 for Parayko.
Did Nicholas say car? I don't think he
said
got to
cars.
a car
No.
in that one. So Nicholas missing out on what was potentially
We're just
the easiest
trolling
option
Nicholas
there.
right now.
But he did get a 0 overall. They
Could
had
be a good
an
one.
even margin between Nicholas and Colton Parayko. Well played, sir. We'll see if that ends up holding up as we go to our next contestant. And our next contestant today is Andrew. Andrew, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing well. How are you?
We're doing really well. I think we might need one more contestant. So if you have not been a part of Can You Beat the Blues just yet, go ahead and text in. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. And if you want to try to go up against Colton Parayko, we'll get one more contestant here on the other side. Just text in, I can beat the Blues. We had Anthony on the line, and then Anthony disappeared. My man from the 573 said, I'm out.
How do you ask to be in a contest and then just disappear? What are we doing, Anthony?
Man, this is what it is. We got Andrew on the line, and we're appreciative of Andrew for being a part of the show.
You're the real MVP.
Andrew, do you understand the rules of the game?
I believe so.
Okay, good. That wasn't a no, so you're already one up on Nicholas.
All right, Andrew.
Let's go.
Your category today, going up against Colton Parayko, is a tough one. I'm not going to lie to you, Andrew. Hockey equipment. Name as many different pieces of hockey equipment as you can in 15 seconds. On your mark, get set, go.
Helmet, skates, knee pads, shin pads, elbow pads, mouth guard, face shield, cup, tape, stick, puck.
To 11 for
He
Andrew.
rocked it. Andrew, were you a hockey player growing up?
Never once in my life.
No, he started from the foot up. Didn't you hear him? He started with skates, shin pads, knee pads. He got to the cup 7 in, which is always probably the most important one.
Okay, yeah,
7
11.
cup.
That was well done
That was
by
impressive.
Andrew.
Way to go, Andrew.
Thank you, guys.
Colton Parayko plays hockey professionally, and I'm not sure he's going to be able to beat an 11, Alex.
Well, first of all, why do you hate Colton Parayko? Stop doubting him. Second of all, let's root for success in this one.
All right, let's see how Colton Parayko does with hockey equipment.
Jock, shin pad socks, pants, skates, shoulder pads, elbow pads, jersey, helmet, gloves, stick. I mean, you could do like steel of skates if you wanted.
That was 12.
Wow.
That was 12.
Right at the end, he's like, I'll go ahead and add in one more just to be able to go one up above Andrew.
Did you hear what he started with, though?
The jock?
Yep. Most important one.
Do all the guys in hockey wear jock straps? I'm genuinely
Is that
asking.
a serious question?
In football, they don't.
Well, those guys are madmen.
Yeah,
but they're also not getting set to block a 102-mile-an-hour piece of rubber.
Most football players do not wear jock straps.
Oh, yeah, they're madmen. And I thought
By the
hockey
time you get
players
to
were
high
madmen.
school, it's pretty much, it doesn't happen very often.
I actually
it
would
restricts your movement a little bit as a football player.
I would wear a jock strap to high school and when I didn't even play sports, just in case. You got
just the strap, not the cup.
No, both of them. Both of them. The cup for a reason, but the strap itself. So let's stop talking about my jock and focus on other areas of
I
this
wasn't
one.
talking about yours, to be very, very clear.
Well, we got to it, though.
From the 618. Guys, really? You're going hockey equipment against a hockey player? What'd you expect there? Listen, we got to go with certain categories that these guys are going to be comfortable doing, and that was one that Colton Parayko said he was comfortable doing. So he got a 12. Andrew got an 11. Don't knock it. Nicholas is your leader in the clubhouse. He's at an even going up against Colton Parayko.
There's a lot of people complaining that knee pads aren't a real piece of a hockey equipment. They don't wear knee pads in hockey.
I have good news.
What?
Both of them ended up going with it, so it wouldn't have affected our bottom line.
So you know what, text line? Take that, because knee pads wouldn't have even mattered in this one.
It wouldn't have affected things.
Man, it's got to suck
Nicholas
because
still number one.
Andrew went on a roll, and he failed -1.
Yeah, it's kind of like what T-Bone asked earlier today. Would this be considered to be a success for Jordan Walker? Yes, but also a disappointment.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andrew. Success,
You
but
were a
also
disappointment to BK and Ferrario.
All right, we've got our third contestant on the line. He's going up against Colton Parayko today as well. His name is Jim. Jim, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, sir. Thanks for having me on the show.
Jim, thanks for answering the phone, Jim, when you text in to be a part of the contest and, not ignoring the phone call once you want to be a part
Jim's
of it.
the real MVP.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, Jim, do you understand the rules of the game?
Yes, sir.
All right, Jim, you are going up against Parayko, and today your category is Olympic sports. Name as many Olympic sporting events as you can in 15 seconds. On your mark, get set, go.
Women's basketball, men's basketball, men's hockey. We have figure skating. We have women's and men's high jumps. We also have track and field. We have cross country.
All right, Jim, slow down. I got him with 7.
I do too. Are we going to count men's and women's high jumping?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I did. So that's
Cool.
how I ended up.
So 7. Yep.
It's different events.
I'm asking.
If you were to go to the Olympics and you were a viewer, you would view them at different times. So
I'm
they are considered
asking,
to be,
Brandon.
I would consider them to be different events. Do you agree with that, T-Bone?
I would. Yeah.
We're not going to give Jim the 3 after the buzzer that he just kept rattling off.
Oh, no, but I do respect it.
Okay, good.
I do also like that he started with men's and women's basketball, and then we went to all of the different things. Okay, now we're going to a hockey rink, or we're going to an ice skating rink, so we're going to go to hockey. We're going to go to figure
I just like how he said
and then
men's.
suddenly we ended up in track and field.
I just like how he said men's and women's, but didn't have the sport. He was like, I'll figure it out. It's men's and women's. It's
tough,
good, Jim.
man.
Yeah, this is not easy on the spot.
All right, let's go to Colton Parayko. Let's see how he does with the Olympic
future
sports,
Olympian.
something that he's going to be a part of here pretty soon.
hockey, downhill skiing, long jump skiing. You got long jump, you got 100 meter, you got 200 meter, 400 meter, 800 meter. You got triathlon. You probably got swimming, canoeing.
I got 11 for Parayko.
Is canoeing one?
Yeah, canoeing's got to be one of them. Let's find out. It doesn't matter if canoeing is or is not because we have Nicholas as the winner.
Canoeing is indeed at the Summer Olympics.
It wouldn't be at the Winter Olympics.
Oh, just the Olympics nonetheless. I said Olympic sports. I didn't.
No, I know. I'm just saying. If you put it at the Winter Olympics, that would be shuffleboard.
Touche. That is a fair way to put it. All right, so he had 11. Jim had -7. So technically nobody beaten Colton Parayko. But Nicholas, by tying with Colton Parayko, it's kind of like in soccer. Sometimes a tie is actually a win, and you did indeed get the win today, Nicholas. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Way to go. Nicholas, for not understanding the rules the first time around, that's an impressive outing by you.
I was just playing dumb.
There you go.
You caught us off guard.
Nicholas today by going up against
Strategy
Colton.
paid off.
Tried what?
He said strategy paid off.
Strategy paid off.
It did indeed. You got a signed puck by Colton Parayko by doing so, and you're going to see the Blues against the Kings on March 1st. So congratulations, Nick. Appreciate you tuning in today, man.
Thank you guys very, very much.
You got it. That's Nicholas. Appreciate him tuning in, being a part of the show, going up against Colton Parayko today. And can you beat the Blues? If you weren't a part of it today, you want to be a part of it in the future, we will do this each and every Monday throughout the rest of the Blues
This
season.
backs up exactly what I've always said. Colton Parayko is the best, and he just proved it once again on BK and Ferrario.
That was an impressive
There
outing
was
by Colton
nobody that was
Parayko.
going to beat Parayko.
It was also in his wheelhouse, hockey equipment and Olympic sports. The things in a garage, though, that was an impressive outing by him.
Are you saying that we slightly edged us in favor of Colton Parayko?
I think all of them are slightly in favor of the players, if you want me to be
Remember
honest
last year when we did NASCAR drivers for Parayko? The guy that went up against the NASCAR got like 2 of them. We were like, oh, this isn't going to be successful at all.
He likes NASCAR, man. What do you
Yeah.
want from us? We got to do stuff that's kind of in their wheelhouse at least a little bit, so they're more interested in doing the game. So, it is what it is. All right, coming up next, we're going to get into some NFL quick hitters here on BK and Ferrario. Did you go into work today and have less energy than you did previously? You don't feel the same way that you did 3, 5, 7 years ago? Well, it could be due to low testosterone, and they can check those levels for you at Victory Men's Health. Book your first appointment today. It is a super easy process. Go to their website, victorymenshealth.com. When you're there, you'll find out exactly how they can unlock your inner champion. And that means different things for different people. For some, it might be checking out that testosterone level. If you're on the lower end of the healthy norm, they could get you back into the top end of that. Maybe it's erectile dysfunction that you've been dealing with, some unwanted weight that you gained over the holiday season that you're trying to lose now. They've got answers for you over at Victory Men's Health, so check them out today. They have 4 great locations across the St. Louis area, and you can read more about all of the things that they can do to unlock your inner champion at victorymenshealth.com. To book that first appointment, go to the website, top right corner of the page. You click book now, put in your name, email, phone number. Tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and tell them how it is that they can unlock your inner champion. Super easy process. They'll help you out the way that they have for me at Victory Men's Health and victorymenshealth.com.
Tanner Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals in spring action as they're currently taking on the Mets, and they are tied at 3 apiece in the bottom of the 6th inning. Steven Matz got the start for the St. Louis Cardinals. He went 2 innings, didn't allow a hit, allowed just 1 base runner with a walk, no strikeouts in his outing today. Blues will be back in action tomorrow when they take on the Kraken. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 7 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, independent American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Let's dive into some NFL quick hitters. T-Bone, you doing okay now?
Oh, I'm better now. I don't have to worry about people not answering their phone.
Andrew is pissed. Feels like the contest was rigged.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wants another shot.
The Olympics?
Well, 2026.
No, Andrew was the hockey equipment against a hockey player.
Well, he got 11. He did really well.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just don't do as well as the opponent does.
Sometimes you think you can take down a number 1 defenseman, and he beats you.
St. Louis City SC played well on Saturday night. Still lost.
Yeah,
do you think they're wanting a rematch?
We tied.
Well, they technically tied, but, you know.
Yeah.
It's still a loss.
Remember let's get into some NFL quick hitters. If you want to play, you can play against not Colton Parayko, but you can play against somebody else next week as we continue. Can you beat the Blues? Earlier today, we mentioned, T-Bone, that your squad, the LA Rams, are apparently listening to offers on Matt Stafford. He wants to get a $50 million per year extension. The Rams are saying, we've got you on another year on your contract. I don't think we're going to do that. They have basically no guaranteed money left, so they could get some kind of a return for him if they decided to trade him. What do you guys think are the best landing spots for Matt Stafford? If you had to put one on the table and say, this is my card to play, I don't think you could beat it. What would be the best possible landing spot for Matt Stafford if he was traded?
I mean, we said it earlier. I think I've convinced myself that the Minnesota Vikings are it. I mean, if I'm Matt Stafford, I'm going somewhere that I've got a better shot at winning a Super Bowl than where I'm at currently. And if you're Matt Stafford, you think you still got some juice in you, I'm going to go to the Vikings with Justin Jefferson and Addison and that roster that they've put together. So I don't think there's any better place than Minnesota.
I like the Pittsburgh fit to an extent. I mean, they've got weapons there that you could get away with if you're Stafford. I mean, it's not the Minnesota one by any means. They've got a solid defense. Stafford and Pittsburgh would be fun. I also wouldn't mind like the Jets. I think the Jets could make some sense for him. I don't know if they're going to do it. They haven't been rumored to be interested in him, which is a little odd. But I think Pittsburgh, of the ones that make sense for him, that are actually going to call and make that possible offer, I think the Steelers are the team.
I think the Vikings, this team I brought up earlier, they're the team that I think makes the most sense for him. Steelers make a lot of sense as well. If the Raiders were in the NFC South, I would say the Raiders kind of make some sense. I don't think they're a great team.
That's the opposite of win now.
I don't think they're a great team. I think we underestimate maybe how close they could be with better coaching and a good quarterback there. Brock Bowers is a stud. Jacoby Myers is a really solid number 2 wide receiver. You can make that work offensively if you've got somebody like Matt Stafford that is the signal caller. They could use a better running back. That's not hard to find. You can get one of those guys in the 3rd round this year if they wanted to. And the defense, it's got some pieces, man. They've got a really good defensive tackle. Max Crosby's a stud. If they were in a different division, I think that would be a team that I would find interesting for him. But they're in the AFC West where they have no chance next year. Even with Matt Stafford, they're at best, an 8-win team?
Yeah.
So I don't think it makes sense from Vegas's perspective to go out. I think it actually makes sense, strangely enough, more sense for them to get to get Darnold than it does for them to get Stafford because of the age. And I'm not somebody that is in favor of anybody spending the money that it's going to take to get Sam Darnold this offseason. So I think Vegas. I think the Vikings would be the team that makes the most sense.
Darnold's going to be the Rams quarterback. I can already feel it.
Sounds like
sure feels that way.
Doesn't make me feel good.
God. He's going to be seeing ghosts for a long time there.
So am I.
If you could choose as a Rams fan, would you rather have like Justin Fields and just have a bridge year next year to where you're trying to find your next quarterback for a season, or Sam Darnold? Two bad options, I understand.
Yeah, I'd rather have Stafford, option C, but I think they would do Darnold. I think that's the route they would go. I think they'd rather say, hey, we think Sam Darnold, what he did in Minnesota, can be sustainable in our offense. We're not too worried about the final 2 games, and he's got weapons here. Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua. They'll probably go out and look to add another number 2 wide receiver with Puka since they're getting rid of Kupp. I think they would go the Darnold route. And I think I rather would, too. I think he fits better than Fields, but...
Would you rather have Brock Purdy or Sam Darnold?
I'd go... I'd go Purdy. I think Purdy'd be fun in McVay's offense.
I think so, too. I mean, it's basically the same offense that he's been running, but...
Yeah, I'd go Purdy. Because Purdy's played well when they've been in the playoffs, right? Like, it wasn't the Sam Darnold where it was, oh, God, I
think
beat
Purdy's
down
like
my
the 15th
leg.
best quarterback. He's solid. He's not great.
Yeah.
He's solid.
And
I don't think Sam Darnold is.
I saw McVay win with that when he had Goff.
There you go. All right, next thing up here. This week is the NFL Scouting Combine, Alex. There's going to be a ton of different reporting that comes out. This is the time of the year where you really starts to get information on these teams. GMs and coaches will be made available, and just everybody's in one area. So you'll see these guys. The dirty little secret about the NFL, the Combine is actually about what happens away from the Combine. These guys are all out till 3 a.m. in the morning, drinking at their favorite local pub in Indianapolis, and they're talking to all of these reporters while drinking. So there's more information that is available this week than really any other time of the year. So this is when you get a lot of information. What is the thing that you're most interested in learning this week? Whether it's potential trade speculation or a team that is going to announce, what are you interested in finding out this week at the NFL draft?
I mean, mine's kind of the trade speculation. When you think of what could be available and what teams could potentially do. I mean, we just talked about the Stafford thing, and you wonder how many teams can kind of shift the dynamic of their look, because that really sets the stage for what you see take place in terms of roster moves prior to the draft. So mine would probably be the trade speculation.
I'm fascinated. I'm going to circle one team here. I'm fascinated to know what comes out of the Combine with the Bengals. And not for what they're drafting, but like you got T. Higgins on the franchise tag, which we've talked about. They could trade him. Now the cap going up makes that dynamic a little more interesting. You've also got Trey Hendrickson, who wants to get paid, who's a solid edge rusher. Now, he's not Myles Garrett, who's on the market, or in theory on the market, but like he could get you something solid in return if you look to move on from him because you can't pay him. Like, they're the team for me that I am most interested in. I think we're going to get a lot of connections starting to circulate here at the NFL Combine.
So I've got a few. Kirk Cousins is one that you have not mentioned yet.
I forgot about him.
What is the plan?
Yeah.
What are the Falcons going to do with Kirk Cousins? What does Kirk Cousins want to do? Is he a guy that could be made available? And if so, could the Rams be interested in him? You know, could Pittsburgh be interested in him? Where is a potential fit for Kirk Cousins? I find him to be really interesting. You mentioned the Bengals. T. Higgins is that guy. And then Myles Garrett would be the third.
Yeah.
He demanded a trade. Is that something that the Browns are actually going to do? And if so, who are the teams that are most aggressive in trying to make a deal for Myles Garrett? This is typically a week where we'll see a trade or two in the NFL, especially leading into free agency, cleaning up the cap situations for some teams, getting ahead of free agency to beat that for those deals. This is a big week typically in the NFL for some of those kinds of moves.
The one that will be fun, that will come from the Combine itself, not the rumors, but it will come from executives who are telling reporters, who's the third first-round quarterback, guys? Who's the guy that creeps his way into that first-round conversation? Now, he'll probably end up being a second- or third-round pick.
Sure.
But we know we're at
This
that
year's Will
silly
Levis?
season. Yeah, who is the Will Levis? My guess is probably Jackson Dart is the guy that kind of
feels like
starts
the
to
one.
float up into that. Hey, he could be a back first-round pick. And then we all look at each other and go, all right, seriously, he's going to be like second or third
What's
round.
his face from Ohio State going into the draft?
Howard.
Yeah, Howard.
Yeah, I think he's viewed as like a late pick.
Watch
day
that.
3.
That one will spark and be like, oh, he just won the college football playoffs.
Tyler Shuck is another guy that is getting some buzz. Now, he's like 30 years old. He played for Louisville last year. Previously was with Texas Tech and Oregon. People seem to really like him. I'm going to be totally candid. I didn't watch a whole lot of Louisville this year, so I'm not super familiar with his game. But I've seen some people that I really respect that are big fans of what he was able to do this year at Louisville. So that's another guy that I bet you'll hear some buzz on going into this week.
Think we'll hear anything about Gabriel? I kind of think he's kind of stuck in
I
that.
like Dylan Gabriel.
I do too.
feel like
he
he's
reminds me a little
backup.
of Penix. Lefty, slings. I don't think he's as good as
He doesn't
Penix
have
was,
the cannon that
but
Penix did.
he's someone too that I could hear some buzz. Maybe not first round, but I could see where he like creeps into, hey, maybe second, maybe third. Because I'm with you. I like Gabriel as well.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. A little bit of news passed along from the NFL as well. The Packers are the team that has submitted a proposal to the NFL's competition committee to ban the tush push. So there is a potential proposal in place to potentially ban the tush push. Yeah, their owner, chairman, president, whatever you want to call it, he's really not a fan of the tush push.
You'd think the Chiefs would do it because they like to cheat their way to victories.
But yeah, that's been put into place. I don't think this is going to pass. It hasn't the last couple of years. I would assume it's going to be the same thing this year. But for those that really hate the play,
push that tush.
Packers are trying to get rid of it. The Rewind coming up next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley for our friends over at Circus Sports in the state of Illinois. Alex, over the weekend, I did go over to Illinois. I wanted to play some bets down. I got my bet on Mizzou to win the national title. I did that right before the game on Saturday. Of course, then their odds went down. So I had bad timing. Doesn't have to be bad timing for you, though. Bet with Circa because they're giving you the best odds possible. This is also the time of the year I like to get down my Major League Baseball futures. Padres, 30-1 odds to win the World Series over on Circa. If I made the same bet, though, on FanDuel, Alex, 26-1 odds. odds. Phillies 12-1 on Circa, 11-1 on FanDuel. Red Sox 25-1 on Circa, 22-1 over on FanDuel. And the Orioles, another team that I would throw out there, 18-1 on Circa, 14-1 on FanDuel. When I bet with Circa because I get the best odds possible.
Yeah, that's the transparency that they talk about. They encourage their bettors to go check out the other sports betting apps because they know when you check out those lines that you'll be coming back to Circa Sports Illinois. Plus those big parlays that I love to put together, Circa Sports keep as little money as possible on those. Plus customer service-wise, you're dealing with an actual person, not just a robot. What more could you ask for your sports betting needs? If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app is free to download. It is super easy to use, and it is presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. If you missed anything from the show today, that means you missed Katie Wu joining us earlier today. It means you missed our breakdown of the latest on Nolan Arenado, which I know you were looking forward to,
Absolutely.
and you missed us discussing what was a pretty good weekend overall for the St. Louis Blues. Top line looking good. Pavel Buchnevich looking great. Robert Thomas was a nice factor in those games as well. And Alex, that's where I wanted to finish today's show, is with the St. Louis Blues, who played well over the weekend, got 3 out of the possible 4 points. They're back in action tomorrow night against the Seattle Kraken. We'll, of course, have full coverage right here on 101 ESPN, including an interview with Jeremy Rutherford tomorrow. What did you learn about the Blues over the weekend in their 2 games that they played?
I learned that break benefited them, and it seems like after, and I know it's only 2 games, but it seemed like the entire team was more willing to buy into what Jim Montgomery is selling them. And what I mean by that is prior to the break, Jim Montgomery talked about, look, we need a heavy forecheck. We need to be aggressive. We need to be ready to go and bring energy immediately. And they just weren't doing it. They would do it later in the game, but you'd already be down and behind. And in these 2 games against Winnipeg and Colorado, it felt like from the start it was forecheck, it was aggressiveness, it was not letting up. That's what Jim Montgomery wants to see, and I don't know what's going to take place the rest of the way, but that's the established structure that he's looking for. And when your top guys are doing it, the rest of the team follows.
On the Cardinals side of things, they lose over the weekend, but who cares about the spring training results overall? For the most part, my takeaways were limited to a few different guys. 2 of them I saw pitching. TK Roby, I thought, looked really good for the Cardinals. That was encouraging. I know I fell in love with him last year as well. This is just the type of pitcher that I'm going to fall in love with. Riley O'Brien looked very good as well for them. And T-Bone, you thought J.J. Weatherholt looked really good as well, other than just the homer, which was obvious.
Yeah, Weatherholt looks really good, and he looks confident and comfortable at the plate. He doesn't look like a big league. He looks like a big leaguer right now. No, I'm not saying you bring him up here. No need to rush him. But yeah, he looks great. He was doing a good job of fouling off pitches low and away. He has good bat control. He was really impressive.
Double earlier today from Jordan Walker. That is an encouraging sign for him. Certainly the news yesterday, a couple of days ago, I guess now, was Nolan Arenado. There was differing reports on the likelihood of him getting dealt. Katie Wu told us earlier today it seems unlikely. Nothing's been brought to him. He has not necessarily changed his mind on his impression of Houston. We'll see. John Denton and MLB.com had a report that, hey, the Astros have at least started talking again, had conversations with the Cardinals about what a potential deal could look like. We'll be following that. We'll see if anything comes with it. If you want our full thoughts on that, you can check out the podcast page after the show today at 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.